Good morning, Kenyans. Thank you so much for being part of this show this early. We appreciate your valued time. And of course, we are live on KBC Channel 1. The show is Good Morning Kenya. The show is on, and so to speak, politically, everything is on course right now as we speak. It's political season, as we all know it. We'll be talking about politics later on at the top of the hour. But for the lovers of football, African Cup of Nations are still on, and Troy will be giving us more details and results on what happened last night. But before then, the crew is already here. Jen, good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you guys doing?
I'm fine. You look amazing.
Oh, stop.
Yeah.
Niko na kanyore kakufrip.
Leo meweza.
Jesus siku zingine sikuangi nimeweza Doreen.
Leo tu iko extra.
Thanks.
It's Tuesday.
Thanks. Flips hair.
Unakwambia umeweza lakini leo umewezesha.
Flips hair.
Today you've managed.
Nikuchanganyisha kamiti. Kuchanganyisha kamiti yote. Good morning and welcome to the program. As always, we appreciate that you choose to start your morning with us right here on Good Morning Kenya. I am Jane Wamboi, and as we always do it every Tuesday, we will be having our health segment, and today we'll focus on a topic that we touched on very briefly yesterday, and this is all about therapy. Yes, seeing a psychologist to just talk it out, but what really is a therapy? We will be demystifying all that in not too long. So if you have any questions or any concerns, or you're just seeking clarification when it comes to anything to do with therapy, we welcome you to send them through using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya. Doreen.
Again, and a beautiful morning to you, viewers. You know we always appreciate you. Monday through Thursday, 6:30 up until 10 a.m. joining us up till the end, and that's why we are here to just keep you company and put you up to speed with what is happening in Kenya and even beyond. And speaking about Kenya and basically what has been happening on the roads, you just perhaps might be thinking that the numerous roadwork activities and construction that we've been seeing have been happening only in Nairobi, but that extends further to various counties, and that's why this morning we'll be looking at the traffic flow in Mombasa County, areas around Makupa, Mariakani. Remember the new Nyali Bridge? That is the things. Those are the things that we'll be focusing on today as we look at the traffic flow on the specific areas, given the fact that at least around last year there was a lot that was happening in terms of construction on those areas that I've mentioned. So how has that affected traffic specifically in that particular county? That will be your focus this morning on the traffic flow, and as always, try to look at better alternative routes if at all we might be needing to this morning in Mombasa County. Many thanks for joining us. I'm Doreen Arange Okelo. Troy.
Indeed, good morning Kenya, and since this is the first JP I'm doing,
this year.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Good.
Gender parity for days.
Yes. This new year, new resolutions. Zile tulipanga hapa, we're going to do everything so that 2022 will be a very, very successful year. And of course, I'll be coming back with the latest news. They say a new day brings a new light. A new day, a new dollar. In our case, a new day, a new shilling. Let's wake up for nation building. I'll be back with the news. A very warm welcome to Good Morning Kenya News, and we begin at the courts where Meru Senator Mithika Linturi spent the night at Kaptembo Police Station in Nakuru Town West, awaiting to be arraigned in court on Tuesday, that is today, even as Chief Magistrate Edna Nyanoti noted or cited lack of time to hear the matter on Monday. The prosecution will be seeking 7 more days to detain him. Linturi was arrested on Saturday for his utterances during a rally in Eldoret on Saturday that landed him in trouble.
Meru Senator Mithika Linturi will miss Tuesday's Senate special sitting as he will be arraigned in a Nakuru court. On Monday, the prosecution led by State Counsel Jamsumba Onyango sought to hold the senator for a further 7 days pending investigations.
One firstly, Mithika Linturi will be detained for 7 days at Kaptembo Police Station. pending investigations of the matter.
However, the court noted there was insufficient time to hear the matter and pushed it to Tuesday. However, the defense objected the application, saying that there were no compelling reason to continue detaining the senator without charging him.
So the court should be interested in asking the prosecution, where have they been for the last 24 hours? It is not even fair to this court, to the defense, to the accused person, to be rushed to court 30 minutes before closure of business time. The state cannot rely on emotions to say that the offense is so serious that bail should be denied.
They argued that he had a crucial matter at Senate special sitting on Tuesday to debate the political party's amendment bill.
What is that Deputy President William Ruto has condemned the incitement remarks by Meru Senator Mithika Linturi. He, however, called for impartial application of the law in dealing with hate mongers in the country. Ruto, who spoke during a rally in Bomet, cautioned politicians allied to UDA to mind their language and avoid making inflammatory statements. Ruto's move comes in the wake of mounting criticism of Linturi's remark, who cautioned politicians against undermining cohesion in the run-up to the 2022 elections.
Meru Senator Mithika Linturi's Madoadoa statement took the center stage during the UDA political rallies in Bomet and Kericho counties, where the Deputy President William Ruto broke silence, asking UDA politicians to mind their language.
And I want to tell members of my team, the Hustler Nation, that all of us must mind our language. All of us must be careful about what they say, so that we can unite this country, because that is what the Hustler Nation believes in.
Speaking at the Bomet Green Stadium in Bomet County, Ruto, while condemning Linturi for his inappropriate use of language, promised that his party UDA will be at the forefront in preaching peace.
Senator Linturi made a statement which he regrets, a statement that had inappropriate language, and Senator Linturi has apologized. He has withdrawn the statement and he has unconditionally apologized to the people of Kenya.
The DP was, however, quick to ask state security agencies to impartially deal with all hate mongers across the political divide.
We want every inciter in Kenya, whether they belong to UDA or they belong to the other side, we want the law to apply equally so that we can secure our nation.
This even as the National Council of NGOs strongly condemn political utterances being peddled by some politicians. The council, while calling for political tolerance from both the leaders and their supporters, want relevant security agencies to arrest and charge those spreading hate.
Tutasimama imara na wananchi wa Kenya na serikali yetu pia kuhakikisha wale wanatoa matamshi ya chuki wanachukuliwa hatua za kisheria, sababu kila neno ambayo inatoka kinywa cha kiongozi yote ni amana, na inatakikana pia kila kiongozi hawe na makini kuhakikisha kwamba asitambue maneno ambayo imeleta shida.
Similar sentiments were shared by a section of women leaders drawn from Mount Kenya, who warned politicians against making statements that could plunge the country into chaos ahead of the general elections.
Sisi ndio wazazi wa watoto wetu wale waliuawa 207. Sisi ndio mabibi ya wazee wetu wale waliuawa 207, na huwezi kuturudisha nyuma.
We are speaking as women from 7 political parties in Mount Kenya. Our agenda is peace. That is most important. And we have said we will throw our weight as women in Mount Kenya behind the leader who will assure us of peace, cohesion, and unity.
Away from that, let's now focus on matters security, where Coast Regional Commissioner John Elungata has assured Lamu residents of their security, this despite a series of attacks in the region. Speaking on the sidelines of a security meeting with Lamu leaders led by Governor Fahim Twaha and Lamu security officials, the regional commissioner reiterated that the security agencies are vigilant and will restore peace in the country. This as another attack in Kibaoni claimed 2 more lives.
3 at the Coast General Hospital, 5 health workers unions converged to air their grievances on the settlement with their employer. The unions decry 2 months unpaid salaries, an inactive comprehensive medical cover, as well as unlimited statutory deductions.
Watoto kubado kwa nyumbani, hawajenda shuleni, manyumba hazijalipwa, chakula hakuna transport. How will you go to work? Are you going to crawl to work?
The workers have resorted to down the tools by midnight today if the county government does.
Indeed, we do apologize for that mix-up of those clips. Let me retake that story again, where Coast Regional Commissioner John Elungata has assured Lamu residents of their security, this despite a series of attacks in the region. Speaking on the sidelines of a security meeting with Lamu leaders led by Governor Fahim Twaha and Lamu security officials, the regional commissioner reiterated that security agencies are vigilant and will restore peace in the county. This as another attack in Kibaoni claimed 2 more lives.
Security in Lamu County has continued to be heightened amid yet another attack in Kibaoni that saw 2 people killed by unknown attackers. Confirming the incident, Coast Regional Commissioner John Elungata said though they have made no arrests, they have a crucial lead on the attackers and have adequate military and police deployed to deal with the situation.
Indeed, there were 2 people who died yesterday in the process of escaping from those attackers. Like I've said, the loophole was identified, which the attackers exploited, but that has not been sealed. That has now been sealed, and don't expect to see any further incident of that nature, because we've emplaced soldiers as well as police in those areas.
Elungata saying he is cognizant of rising tension in areas including Juhudi and Kamukunji in Majembeni location near Kibaoni, saying the situation is being handled with the police and military deployed to ensure they secure those isolated areas.
In the process, a lot of people left their homesteaders came to Kibaoni, where we have sheltered them in a school nearby. But by this morning, I think a lot of them began going back, and we want to assure them that the military as well as the police have put in place mechanisms to ensure that those who are really in isolated places are protected, and that there should be no issue of worry, because we have discovered where the loophole was and we have sealed it.
Lamu leaders commended the national government's quick intervention and appealed to the residents to remain calm and coexist harmoniously while the multi-agency security team deals with the insecurity.
All communities, wafugaji, wakulima, wavuvi, tukae pamoja, tuzungumze maneno, alafu pia wakubwa watakuja kuaddress zile matatizo nyeti tuko nayo hivi sasa. Serikali na sisi viongozi sote tumeweka tofauti zetu za kikabila za siasa kando, na tumeamua kwamba tushikane, tuwe kitu kimoja, tulete usawa, na ili tuweze Lamu iweze kuendelea na iwe ni mahali pazuri pa kila mtu kuishi.
Hatutakubali. Tumekaa na amani, tumekaa na ustaarabu, tumekaa na upendo, wananchi wote wa jumla. Less than 6 months to election, tunaona mambo kama haya, lakini tunaachia serikali wafanye uchunguzi, wapate wahusika wakuu na to bring them to books.
At the same time, Lamu Woman Representative Ruwaida Mohammed called on the security agencies to apprehend those using social media to escalate tension and cause animosity among the residents.
Tumesema hapa, wale watu wa Facebook wanatetesha watu Lamu washikwe immediately, na wale wanachochea baina communities na community washikwe immediately, wapelekwe polisi, ndio mfano kwa wengine.
From Lamu County, I am Anburu.
And still at the court, health Workers in Mombasa County had threatened to down their tools on Tuesday if their salary dispute had not been resolved by midnight. They have since called off that strike. Meanwhile, the Kenya County Government Workers Union of Mombasa have suspended their imminent strike following successful negotiations with the county governor Hassan Ali Joho. As Junai Karisa reports, the Joho-led administration is appealing for calm and sobriety as they negotiate to address the welfare of their workers.
Monday morning at the Freedom Tree at the Coast General Hospital, 5 health workers unions converged to air their grievances on the settlement with their employer. The unions decry 2 months unpaid salaries, an inactive comprehensive medical cover, as well as unlimited statutory deductions.
Watoto kubado kwa nyumbani, hawajenda shuleni, manyumba hazijalipwa, chakula hakuna transport. How will you go to work? Are you going to crawl to work?
The workers have resorted to down their tools by midnight today if the county government does not yield to their demands.
Tunahuzunika sana kwamba mnaanza mwaka mpya mkiwa wagonjwa na mnakosa huduma kwa hospitali za umma.
However, at the Kenya County Government Workers Union Mombasa branch headquarters, its leadership convened to suspend the strike notice scheduled for Tuesday next week.
Tumepokea simu kutuonyesha kwamba amefaulu kulipa mishahara miwili na kuweza kulipa matibabu kwa jumla. Na yale yote ambayo kwamba alikuwa yanamtatiza mfanyikazi wako tayari kuyatekeleza.
The Union Secretary General Haj Mwinyi says successful bilateral talks with the county boss on Friday halted the strike with the promise that the workers' pay and medical cover will be resolved by Friday.
Niweza kukaa mikutano mingi sana management ambayo kwamba mikutano ile haikuzaa matunda kwa sababu walikuwa wana lack of communication. Iwapo sasa tulikuwa tunaenda kwenye mikutano pia semina wanatukimbia, hawakai, tunampata mmoja ama wawili ambao kwamba shida kama zile hatuwezi kuzitatua, lakini tukasinikiza ni lazima tumpate gavana ili ajue yanayojiri.
Mwinyi further revealed that the union was in talks with the County Public Service Board to renegotiate the workers' CBA that has stagnated from 2012.
Wakati mwingi unapokuwa unataka kuenda katika negotiation una aim higher, aim 100%, lakini katika negotiation time ikifika is a matter of give and take.
Mombasa County Secretary Job Tumbo is calling for patience among the affected lot, urging them to give negotiations a chance.
Some of the grievances that they had raised, which had been taken up by the governor, have started yielding fruit, and that salaries are coming through. Yeah, I would be very disappointed if and when the doctors continue with the strike. I would urge them and encourage them that based on the meeting that they had with His Excellency the Governor on Friday, they need to give that discussion a chance.
Meanwhile, the creative industry has distanced themselves from the settlement, dismissing reports that the county government had diverted the salaries during the end-year festivity.
Nimepitia gazeti fulani, nimeona kuna bwana mmoja wa human rights anasema kwamba kulipa msanii ni waste of funds. Hiyo kitu inauma sana.
Mwingine nimeona amesema tumelipwa milioni 2. Milioni 200. Nimefurahi sana kama ameona sisi thamani yetu iko kiasi hicho. Ukweli ni kwamba kama ana proof alete.
Juni Karisa Mbele from Mombasa County.
And to some politics now, where Nairobi gubernatorial hopeful Tim Wanyonyi says he has what it takes to propel Nairobi to the next level of development should he clinch the county's top seat. Speaking when he met 100 members of the clergy at the United Kenya Club in Nairobi, Wanyonyi said his track record as Westlands MP speaks for itself.
Let your will be done. Yes. As he goes out, Jehovah God.
Westlands MP Tim Wanyonyi, who is eyeing the Nairobi gubernatorial seat on an ODM ticket, said it's now time to place Nairobi in the hands of leaders who prioritize service delivery to residents instead of previous leaders who fulfill their selfish interests.
I have worked in City Hall before as a councillor, before I became a member of parliament for Westlands. I know what it takes for us to fix Nairobi. And Nairobi cannot be fixed by an individual. Nairobi will be fixed by the people of Nairobi. The people of Nairobi must stand up and say enough is enough. We don't want people who come and take advantage and deliver nothing, promise heaven and deliver zero.
Elsewhere in Bungoma, a section of Luo MPs have voted for Deputy President William Ruto's presidential bid. saying he has better plans to revive the economy through boosting small-scale trade.
Nimeongea na watu wa bodaboda, nimeongea na manamba, nimeongea na wale wakulima, nimeongea na wale watu maskini, na wakaniambia chama ya kuingia ambayo inaweza kubadilisha maisha ya watu ya Bungoma ni chama ya UDA.
Ana sera za kuinua wamama, ana sera za kujenga uchumi wa taifa. Huyo ndio president tunataka.
And the commissioner with the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, Doricus Kidogo, has warned hate-mongers in political rallies of stern action. The commissioner spoke at a funeral service in Muhanda village in Vihiga County, where differences between ODM and ANC leaders took center stage.
Chunga sana, wakati huu ni wakati wa kuomba kura. Omba kura yako vizuri pamoja na watu wako. Ukiwaambia waanze kuzusha, walete vurugu, sisi tutakabiliana na wao, hatutakabiliana na yule alikuambia.
The commissioner added that the commission won't entertain such inflammatory utterances.
Community primary school in Kilifi County have decried and are pleading for assistance to help them address an infrastructural challenge at the institution. The school, which is near the town center, has only 2 toilets, lacks enough classrooms and has no desks for learners. And as Purity Museo reports, the pupils share toilets with their teachers irrespective of gender.
School in Malindi, Kilifi County has only 1 toilet that is shared among teachers and learners. The teachers are also forced to sit under this cashew nut tree as the institution lacks an office block. Learners are forced to sit on the floor as the school has less than 10 desks in an institution of 188 pupils.
Wakati wa kuandika inakuwa vigumu kwa sababu hawana pahali pa kuwekelea, ni kwenye mapaja. Madawati ya kutosha hakuna, ni kama madawati mawili yaliyoletwa na mfadhili mmoja.
Kuna floor iliharibika, pia mabati ni hivyo ambavyo mmesikia hapo yanachapa.
Joseph Kambi Kazungu, a retired teacher who acts as the deputy head teacher at the school, says the institution has made the learning environment unconducive.
Angalau kama kutakuwa na usaidizi kama tunavyojua sisi, ni vile vilivyojengwa tayari vile, na kuna kisehemu kingine kule, ukiangalia kule kuna kisehemu kingine kule. Hicho nacho tuliambiwa huyo mwenyewe amekubali kukitoa kwa shule.
He said the school, which is run by parents, requires urgent intervention because the challenges pose a major health hazard to both the learners and staff.
Serious. Because ukiona watoto choo ni kimoja cha wasichana na wavulana pamoja na walimu. Hii ni aibu gani Malindi hii jamani?
The school was first built by Devolution Chief Administrative Secretary Gideon Mungaro when he was elected Member of Parliament for Malindi. Then William Tengo built 2 more classrooms when he was elected MP in 2016.
To the corridors of justice now, where the High Court has extended orders to freeze the lease of Mumia's Sugar Company pending hearing of new applications on contempt of court and jurisdiction. Justice Anthony Ndongo warned that anyone who disobeys the orders would be doing so at their own peril. Mumia's Sugar Company woes continue as the High Court extended orders seeking to freeze the lease of the company. Justice Anthony Ndongo extended the orders after Mumia Sugar Company filed a contempt of court application against Sarai Group of companies who won the lease of executing the lease without the consent of Mumia's company or seeking leave from the court. Sarai Group, on the other hand, filed an application challenging the jurisdiction of the court to hear the matter, arguing that the freeze orders were overtaken by events as the injunctions were issued after the lease had been awarded. Justice Anthony Ndongo directed that the applications be heard on the 22nd of January this year.
confirm the copy.
Meanwhile, the hearing of the Arol and Kimwarel Dam scandal involving former Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich continued on Monday with an amendment to the charge sheet.
Under Section 214 of the CPC, the prosecution, Your Honor, is allowed to make amendments to the charge.
Former Inspector General of State Corporations Titus Muredi would take plea after the amendment of count 26 of the case, which accused him of using his office to intentionally issue a misleading report on the Aror and Kimwarel Dam projects to the Cabinet Secretary for East Africa Community and Regional Development, Aidan Mohammed. Finally, a businessman has been released on a 1 million shillings bond after denying obtaining over 4 million shillings by false pretenses. Peter Gitao denied obtaining 4,139,200 shillings from Peter Njenga Muhika by purporting he was in a position to assist him purchase a house in Buruburu, Nairobi in October 2018, yet he knew he couldn't.
He may be released on bond of 1 million shillings with one issue of similar amount of cash bill of 500,000 shillings. With one contact person will be supplied with copies of witness statements, the charge sheet, and any other documentary evidence.
The case will be mentioned on 24th of January. In business, the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife will not revise its vaccination certificate requirement for hotel customers as requested by a section of tourism industry players. Tourism Principal Secretary Professor Fred Sigor said there is no trade-off between business and health, and therefore the government will continue following strict Ministry of Health guidelines on containing the spread of the coronavirus.
Regulation requiring patrons to hotels, bars, lounges, casinos and game parks to show COVID vaccination certificates to access services came into force 3 weeks ago. However, some hoteliers say the new regulation is likely to hurt business that has been battered by COVID-19 containment restrictions and want the government to review it.
When it comes to issues health, the Ministry of Health is in the forefront in giving direction. And whenever we are handling issues tourism, we ensure that we work closely with them.
Professor Segor urged tourism industry players to continue enforcing the Ministry of Health guidelines on containing the spread of coronavirus, noting that health is of paramount importance to the country.
And as directed by Ministry of Health, we work very closely to ensure that the policy on the side of government is followed.
He made the remarks during the handover of 5 patrol motor vehicles and 20 motorbikes valued at 35 million shillings to the Maasai Mara National Reserve and Tsavo National Parks for enhancing anti-poaching and illegal wildlife trafficking in Kenya. The government says these are part of Kenya's larger 2.1 billion shillings anti-poaching strategies.
As much as poachers are also increasing their technology, I want to assure you that as government we are using a multi-agency approach, and in addition we are also modernizing our equipment to ensure that we are ahead as far as this issue is concerned, because we are determined to ensure that poaching is indeed brought to an end.
The project was partly financed by the United Nations Development Programme.
Elsewhere, Insurance Regulatory Authority is challenging underwriters to enhance value and trust in insurance to grow uptake. This was said during the officially handing over of an insurance operating license to Equity Life Assurance, which is a subsidiary of Equity Group Insurance. And Insurance Regulatory Authority Chair Abdi Rahim Haida says there is need to increase the number of players so as to lower the cost of premiums.
Kenya is ranked among the top 3 African nations in insurance penetration. However, insurance penetration in Kenya currently stands at 2.4% against a global average of 7.2%. The Insurance Regulatory Authority is now calling on established firms to step up subsidiaries with separate structures and commercial agreements in line with the regulator to tap into the market.
When you're buying selling insurance, you're telling trust. And when people trust the name, they buy into it. A wide, how should I say, a distributor network that you already have that you can utilize to sell the product.
Speaking during the official handing over of an insurance operating license to Equity Life Assurance, Equity Group CEO James Mwangi said the long-term strategy of the new subsidiary is to ensure that more Kenyans take up insurance as a way of cushioning themselves against risks.
Insurance would be to complement what the financial sector has played. Protection is the biggest tool of protecting the quality of the assets of our banking industry.
The regulator is challenging players to enhance distribution and value for the customer to grow trust in underwriting.
Make our contribution, maybe making protection more inclusive, maybe trying to simplify protection so that it's more widely understood by people. And hope if we make insurance protection as accessible as maybe financial access has become accessible.
Equity Life Assurance joins 61 other insurance providers in the country. The top 5 life assurance companies in Kenya by turnover, which have a combined market share of 63.4%, are Britam Life, ICEA Lion Life, Jubilee Insurance, Canada, and Sanlam Life.
And in sports, we had a very busy night yesterday and evening, and the latest results are Gabon did beat Comoros Islands on their debut 1-0. Morocco also had a big win, 1-0 win against Ghana, and also Guinea won 1-0 against Malawi as the tournament entered day 2 in Cameroon. Of course, you can stay tuned in to KBC, your true sports partner, for all the latest results. That's all we had for KBC Good Morning News. Well, next, let's have a review of the newspapers. My name is Ben Troinjue.
Log on to the KBC website at www.kbc.co.ke to get the latest breaking news, entertainment, sports, politics, lifestyle or business trends from Kenya and around the world. Never miss new episodes from your favorite TV shows, reruns and movies. Just stream online or watch live on your YouTube channel at KBC Channel 1 TV shows. For the day's biggest stories, trustworthy news and family entertainment, log on to KBC Channel 1. Watch what you want anytime, anywhere.
What good would it do if she's not even going to hug you anymore? You need to move on with your life, Ding Renjian. Would you wake up?
All done. Done. Does it even matter? I'm nothing like those developers. And I don't want to be. It's not right.
I didn't take advantage of anyone. On the job, I turned it down.
Hold on. Do you realize how much trouble I went through to make this opportunity possible for you?
Turns away, the sun sends the day, creeping into the gloom.
Welcome back to the program. We continue with Good Morning Kenya, and time for now us to look at how the roads are doing in terms of traffic. And this morning, or rather Tuesday today, I said we'll be focusing on Mombasa City, or if you may, Mombasa County, trying to look at the various projects that have also been done in this particular county when it comes to the different roadwork activities. And I'll be showing you just what has been happening, especially around this area. This is the Makupa roundabout, as well as sections of Nyali, about the Nyali Bridge, and also sections of Mariakani. Those are the three different areas we shall be looking at. But right now, very quickly, just the traffic flow around this area, looking at the fact that there was a bit of an expansion, especially around this particular place. And this was part of the President's Big Four agenda to try and see how best they can just decongest this area because of Mombasa being a tourist hub. So this is how it is looking like this morning. Not really that bad around this roundabout, given the fact that it is one of those major roundabouts, and part of what was inclusive when it came to its construction was also trying to ensure that they put up various sleep roads that lead to this particular roundabout. So that is also part of what characterizes it to being one of those major roundabouts, given the fact that it gets to branch off to major roads, areas around Mombasa Road, actually in Mombasa City, as you head over to counties of Nairobi, as well as some various sleep roads, key among them being Lumumba Road, which heads you to areas around the Makupa police station, and various other major roads that also get to branch off from this particular roundabout. So this is why it became necessary to try and see how best they could decongest this area, as well as try to see how they could expand most of these roads that get to branch from this particular roundabout, just because of that particular reason that I said, being one of those cities which is a tourist hub. So that try to see how best they can improve on the economy of this country. So this is just why this particular road also became one of those projects that was there when it came to the construction process. So away from that, coming to the traffic flow, where it just looks to be a bit of a traffic is as you leave the roundabout, branching through Mombasa Road there, and also as you leave the roundabout, slightly branching through Tomboya Road. Those are just the two areas where there's a bit of a traffic, but at least a manageable kind of traffic. Where it looks like it's really moving at a very slow pace is as you leave the particular roundabout, coming through Mombasa Road, the sections of Mombasa County, just before you get to the estates there, only on that particular section, just in between there. Look at that. That's just where there's a bit of a traffic, actually on both lanes. As you leave the city, or as you leave the roundabout, heading to the sections around the estates, moving at a very slow pace on the other side, coming to the city center, which is really quite interesting and so different from also what we will be seeing in areas around Nairobi, because as you head over to sections around city center in the early morning hours, such time as this, on those particular lanes as you head over to the city center is where you'd really be expected to be seeing heavy kind of traffic, but that looks to be a bit different. Nonetheless, much as there's traffic, there are still altogether manageable kind of traffic, and that is just specific to that section there. Away from that, throughout this entire roundabout, in fact, just on that section, that is just where there's traffic, majorly on the entire roundabout, moving at a very, very swift pace. Clear indication that that particular project, which was being spearheaded or commissioned in 2020 and finished there, serving its purpose very well, because part of what was being done was to decongest this area, which in turn only meant also to reduce the traffic flow. So like I said, in the next link up segment, I'll just be showing you how that area is looking like, the pictorial bit of it, trying to see how that expansion process came about, and also the various other areas which we'll be focusing on today when it comes to traffic flow in Mombasa County.
All right, so let's take a look at what's on the front pages of our local dailies here. And on the front page of the Star newspaper, why court battle could force DP Ruto to resign. Why court battle could force Deputy President Ruto to resign. His resignation would mean going into election without trappings of power. And this is just like legal showdown, where Omtata wants a section of law giving him exemptions nullified. That is according to the activist Oki Omtata, who has filed that petition. And still on that, very quickly,
The story of Mombasa doctors calling off their strike after salaries are paid. They threatened to begin their strike today, and now Mombasa doctors yesterday evening called off their strike that was to start today. That is Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacist and Dentist Union Mombasa branch. Secretary General Nasir Shaban said that they have received salaries for 2 months and the pending NHIF contribution paid in full. Earlier in the day, the Kenya County Government Workers Union Mombasa branch had urged its members not to participate in any other strike being called by the Health Workers Union. So, as it is, the strike in Mombasa has been called off. Okay, explosive court battle could force DP to resign, and now this is the flesh of the story. Deputy President William Ruto could be forced to resign in order to contest for the presidency on August 9th if a new and intriguing court case succeeds. The case, which was filed by activist Okia Omtata, also seeks to compel all other state officers, including governors seeking to contest for a different office, to resign. Now, Omtata wants the court to revoke Section 43(6) of the Elections Act 2012 for exempting the DP and the governors from resigning 6 months before election. Ruto's resignation, therefore, would mean going into the presidential contest without the trappings of power and state resources. That is what's making a full page here on the Star newspaper. Now, let me give you quick highlights from Omtata's petition. The first one is that the deputy president and governors should resign by February 9th. Exemptions under the Act violate the threshold for limiting rights, and public officers should resign before being nominated as presidential candidates, and as well as IEBC be barred from enforcing the provisions pending hearing. And lastly, Section 43(5), 5A and 6 of the Elections Act 2012 be nullified. So that is according to activist Okia Omtata in his court battle that is most probably likely to force DP Ruto to resign and go into the elections without trappings of power. And finally, while Ruto swiftly moved to warn allies against incitement, Maduadua's law was quickly being turned into political fodder. Deputy President William Ruto has launched an aggressive campaign to further control the damage on his presidential bid, following warmongering remarks by one of his close allies, that is Senator Mithika Linturi, and fearing that the Maduadua's law had assumed political dimension. The DP on Monday warned his Tanga troops to be mindful of their language. Good move there, good move there. All right, Jill.
Now, let me just pick it up from that point, looking at that particular story concerning this comments that were made by Mary Senator Mithika Linturi. That was on Saturday when he referred to the deputy president's opponents as Maduadua, quote unquote. And yesterday, we did see the deputy president coming out to comment on the matter and saying that the Mary Senator did apologize without withholding anything. But on the other hand, yesterday, Azimio la Umoja chief was in Kajiado, and he did make a stop where he spoke about this particular matter. And he went on to point out that, or rather accuse the deputy president and his allies of advancing divisive politics among the population, and urged Kenyans to reject politicians who undermine national unity and cohesion. And this was directly in reference to the statement that was made by Mithika Linturi on Saturday, and just saying such utterances threaten peaceful coexistence among the community. But away from that, looking at the main story here on the front page, this is in regards to the poverty state in our country. So according to a report that has been put out by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, more Kenyans have sunk into poverty since the Jubilee government came into administration. Between the periods of 2013 to 2018, as per what this particular report has captured, more Kenyans have sunk into poverty. And very briefly, looking at this particular story, it goes on to give the percentages, and it currently puts, according to the world data, looking at Kenya's population, it has been estimated to be 53.77 million people as per the World Bank data, and out of that, 53% of this particular portion, which is 28.5 million, are people living in deprivation, people living in poverty. And according to the World Bank's definition of the international poverty line, it currently stands at $1.90, and that translates to about 214 Kenya shillings. But looking at the category that Kenya is in, that is the lower middle income countries, the poverty line has been put at $3.20 a day, and that translates to about 360 Kenya shillings, and 53% of Kenyans live below this particular line. And looking at boiling down to more details as per what has been captured, 36% of men in Kenya live below the poverty line, while 36.2% of women, a difference of 0.1, 36.1 in men and 36.2% of women live beyond the poverty line. But on the other hand, looking at the developments that our country has seen, we have seen a lot of government projects being undertaken over the years, which actually helped our country jump into the category of the lower middle income countries. But as it stands, it will take a while for our country to be able to translate these projects into benefits for the people. More details, we can be able to capture them on this particular daily.
Indeed, and if we have just a nutshell of the standard, the headline, Ruto feels heat over Linturi's whips allies. Of course, is in connection to what my colleagues have talked about, the DP talking about we are not advocating for UDA as a hate speech party, and talked about all MPs or all politicians allied to watch their words. Of course, a big battle for parties bill in Senate today. Talk about a fresh showdown looming at the Senate over the controversial coalition's bill as members convene for a special sitting today. And of course, you can be sure that KBC will be live from the Senate. Well, if we have a look inside, we have Gold Miner says it took the hand of God to come out alive and unhurt. A war was survived for 72 hours without food and water, but he was finally rescued. Something interesting also, 2 years Ugandans since the COVID-19 struck in March of last year, they have not been in school. Now they have resumed. In relation to that, Magoha wants politicians not to interfere with education plans. A loaded 2022, if you ask me, for the national examination calendar. We have KCSE 2021, KCPE 2021 grade 6 national assessments. We have 2022 KCSE again. We have 2022 KCPE, and we also have the 2022 grade 6 national assessments. All these exams will be conducted this year. And Magoha warning politicians, of course, being an election year, we expect a lot of fireworks when it comes to matters politics, and he has warned politicians not to interfere with the education calendar as the Standard 8 and the Form 4 sit for their national examinations, not to mention the grade 6 national assessment that of course is also on the calendar. With some more politics, KANU revamps its national elections board. Each party is trying to position itself during this. Of course, the campaigns will be opened next month, I beg your pardon. And they are now preparing, KANU setting up its election board. And inside we have the battle lines drawn. Senate is expected to convene. And yesterday, after the Senator Mithika Mithika Linturi was arrested and taken to a Nakuru court. They said, you guys are dilly-dallying so that he may not be in the vote today when the Senate have that special sitting. Of course, politics rented the air when it comes to what Mithika Linturi is accused of uttering during the Saturday rally. And of course, as we have said, a lot of leaders have condemned the speech by the senator urging Kenyans to have political tolerance. That's the standard.
Well, a quick run through on the PD, and perhaps I can begin from that story that you mentioned there, Troy. This in respect to what is happening in Uganda and the education sector, whereby after 2 years, this is a time where they're reopening classrooms after nearly 2 years, and this is 15 million pupils have not attended school in Uganda since March of 2020 when schools were closed. So when the president was reopening some big parts of the economy, the school remains, but at least as of now, it will be reopened. This is after 2 years. And now the story of Ongweno, which we ran yesterday, this is the story of the miner that was rescued there. I was actually being interviewed by the PD, and he said that no matter what, whether the poverty is there or not, he will not go to mining again. This is after he just recounts his story and what happened while he was caved in for those 72 hours. And again, this just was a very successful rescue operation that was conducted by the county government and the area national government constituency development offices, which donated those excavators and rock breakers. And also part of what was mentioned there by the county government is that they're planning to lock up these mines because of the numerous number of death cases that have been reported, especially in the mostly in the western part of the country there. And also Muturi says IEBC is given 14 days to respond to degree petitions. This is IEBC, as well as the Speaker of the National Assembly, given 14 days to respond to degree petitions that was filed by some members, saying that if this is supposed to continue, then it means that it will lock out some hopeful members. So 14 days to respond to that. And again, to some bit of politics, Raila Odinga says that Azimio will unite the country, and this is the way to go, just as he was speaking in Ngata Rungai, that is in Kajiado County, still popularizing his bid and telling Kenyans what he will do for them if at all he is elected. And remember that story of the truck drivers with coronavirus certificates who could not enter Uganda, or better still, ferry their goods there. Looks like there's a bit of a reprieve for them, as those with certificates have now been allowed to actually enter in and out of that country. And then lastly, advanced cancer test facility is now set up. This is at the Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital, whereby Kenya's fight against cancer now receives a boost when an advanced screening facility was launched yesterday. We had this story last week whereby there was a bit of conflict, and this is because of the breakdown of that particular machine in KNH, but now a bit of a reprieve for cancer patients there. That is how the PD looks like this Tuesday, Victor.
Thank you, Doreen, for that one. And right now, I'm joined by the Member of Parliament of Seme constituency, that is Dr. James Nikal. Mheshimiwa, thank you so much for coming. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
I'm glad that we are meeting once again this year, where we stopped last year. How is Seme constituency doing?
Well, Seme constituency is fine, like all other parts of the country.
Yes.
We are concerned about the corona, but we don't have specific figures for Seme. We have for Kisumu County.
Yes.
I think Seme will be there. And right now, we are all concerned about the elections that are coming and encouraging our people to come out and register as voters.
Yes.
So otherwise, Seme is relatively fine.
Absolutely. And I think it's also quite imperative to mention that you talked about voter registration, which IEBC said that is going to start on the 17th of this month.
Yes.
The next phase of voter registration. So last year, they did not meet their target.
Yes.
And, you know, as per the law, the voter registration should be something continuous. Do you think they're going to meet their target this time around? Because whatever happened last year, perhaps most people were disillusioned because of the pandemic or otherwise. What is your focus?
My focus is they may get near it, but I'm doubtful as to whether they'll meet it. And my reason is these short bursts are really not good, because people do adjust.
Yeah.
When you say you are now going to do voter registration, then we are going to get the polling stations or the stations where they're going to register. Then you have to, first of all, identify them. You have to advertise them.
Yes.
You have to mobilize people to know where they are. And again, what they've been doing, like what was done in the past, is that actually these are moving stations. So they are here today, they are there tomorrow, they are there tomorrow. And one month is a short time to actually get people to know where things are happening. People don't react immediately. People know, okay, it is in this place. I go today, maybe I'll go tomorrow.
Yes.
Tomorrow they're in another place.
Yes.
So I think in future what we need to do is take 3-4 months if we want to do this registration that we want to supplement the normal daily registration, so that people now get to know the stations are fixed, and they are there for say 1 month. Even if you want to move them, you can say we move them in maybe in a week. They stay there for a week or 2 weeks, then they move like that. Because people get confused. When we were involved the other time, you tell people they'll be here today, they'll be here the 3 days later, they'll be in this place and this place and this place. And sometimes by the time they get there, the people get there, they have moved, because people say, they are there, I'll go tomorrow.
So it's about having specific polling stations.
It is the logistics of doing it that I think is going to be a problem.
IEBC learned from the last phase of voter registration, because the Chebukati-led team, they were talking about funding, which they said that was cut by a certain margin. Something different that might happen this time around?
I'm not aware if the funding has been increased, but I also know that funding is a problem, because we had to mobilize actually to support IBC and also to support national registration ID cards. There should also be some harmony between getting the ID cards and getting voter registration, so that by the time you go to the voter registration, most of the people have the ID cards. But what we realized, we were trying to get people to get the ID cards, then try to get them back, and then get a voter registration. There is some need for logistics, and I think they should be better funded. And the issue of getting the usual registration, the one you are saying that is going on all the time, just at the sub-county headquarters. It is far for some people, and people have to travel with borders or even matatus, and people find it expensive to spend say 300 shillings to go and register as voters. So I think what we should do is actually distribute them a little more, even during this normal voter registration, so that people find it near home and they can register.
And I think it's also important to note that today was supposed to be Battle the Doctors. We're expecting Dr. Boni Halwale, the bullfighter, who is yet to arrive in studio, and we are expecting him anytime from now. Daktari, wherever you are, please, your seat is still waiting for you. All right, so we're still continuing with our discussion today. I'm quite interested to know what is happening in Parliament, because when you talk of voter registration, still on that, Parliament was supposed to give, to go on recess very soon. But there are certain timelines. We have got Azimio la Umoja, the political parties, now people are calling the Azimio la Umoja bill, which I don't think, is it so?
It's not an Azimio la Umoja bill.
Yes.
It is a bill amending the Political Parties Act
2021.
And let me tell you the danger of politicizing issues.
Yes.
Like when you have a bill and then you politicize that bill, people then fail to discuss the merits or the demerits of the bill. People then discuss alignment. So that if you say it is Azimio bill, then those who are pro-Azimio will probably support it even without going into the details of the bill. And those who are against Azimio will oppose it.
It loses contextual context.
It loses contextual context.
Yes.
Which is actually what is important for any bill. Bills cannot be made for a short-term purpose.
Yes.
Bills are made for long-term. The things you think will need late into the further into the future.
Right.
Yes. But so I don't think we should call it an Azimio bill.
And people are calling it as Azimio bill. Actually,
because you see, that is what happened with the BBI.
Yes.
BBI was quickly politicized. So
is it the reason why it lost its footing?
Well, it lost the process. It didn't lose its footing because if you read the contents of BBI, if you read the 9 points that started with handshake, everybody will agree that those things are good for Kenya. Nobody says no. But now, when you then call it BBI and then change those contents into what actually needs to be done administratively or legally, then now people turn around and politicize it and reject what in principle they thought were good things for the country. So there's great danger politicizing anything, really.
Yes. Is BBI disguised as Azimio la Umoja?
What do you mean disguised? The contents of BBI are the contents. You see, the issue with BBI, even in court, was the process, not the contents. Now, Azimio is calling for unity of the country. Now, remember, unity was a big thing in the BBI. So if we take that now, this is our call. It's our running call. Then you can't say it's a name for another name for, because then you are perpetuating what I said is wrong.
Yes.
If you had politicized BBI, then you now say this BBI is just another name for Azimio. Again, you are perpetuating. You are trying to get what I would say unfair advantage that branding BBI did, and you want to extend it to Azimio as well. It's a bit of being a bit of cheating, in my view.
Mheshimiwa, there is the tight timeline that the BBI, the political parties amendment bill has right now is it has until April to make sure that that bill is passed and the president sent to it to become law. But then now looking at it, this means that any coalition party must exist as a legal entity by April 9th. However, the timeline's headache is made worse by the IBC requirements that political parties conclude their nominations by April 16th. So how is this going to complicate the process of now having the coalition party named as existing as an entity, and then now we have coalition? Don't you think it's going to give a very squeezed time for politicians to juggle in between that 9th of April to 16th to make their decisions to belong to any political party?
But you know, the bill is being discussed.
Yes.
And the contents we know. And therefore, it right now it has passed to the National Assembly.
Yes.
It is probably, in my view, going to pass
to the Senate today for the first reading.
Yes. And then it will be assented to. Any politician, any party, we're now planning, must plan with consideration that this thing, if it passes, my timeline is this. So prepare for that as well. If it doesn't pass, then go with the relaxed timeline we had before.
Yes.
That's how life is in everything. Nothing is always clear and in black and white, and it will happen. It is just like the planting season. The forecast will that the rains will come this time.
Then sometimes,
and then it doesn't come. If you had prepared your seeds, you then plant them when the rains come. So I think people should discuss the content of the bill. I agree that the logistics of its implementation is important, but for parties and politicians, now we know those two possibilities. So you plan with them right now.
Yes. Okay, let's plan and take a break right now. And when you come back, I'm still interested in understanding more on that political parties, because you in Parliament, and Parliament voted the Pro-Political Parties Act. You voted for it and it sailed. Now it's going for the first reading in Senate today. So from the Parliament side, that focus, what do we need to understand that Mwananchi needs to understand, and they need to demystify as they go to the Senate today? So let's take a break and we'll come back. Meanwhile, we are still waiting for Boni Khalwale, the bullfighter. Please hurry up, all right? We'll be right back.
hiyo Kate na babako ni wazimu, walitafutana wakapatana.
Nilikwambia yualala na nani? Ataweza kwa hiyo tuchungulie hapa.
Hii ni changamoto mojawapo ambayo mtu hupitia katika ulezi.
Na mimi sitaki kuona hapa. Sitaki uje hapa tena.
Unaficha nini? Na kuona umeficha nini?
Mundos divididos por una sombra de traición.
Don't with them, man, please let go of the gun!
What do you want? You're not supposed to be inside this house.
I didn't want to leave without saying goodbye to my cousin, but I can't find her anywhere. Would you know where she is?
What's going on?
I don't know.
Oh my God. I hope my grandson Alonso is all right.
Hello. What's going on? You had caught her in some kind of situation that you didn't like? Yes. Lying heart.
Fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición.
Very good and welcome back. We are still here with Member of Parliament of Seme constituency, that is Dr. James Nyikal. And my focus is still on that bill that is headed to the Senate today for the first reading. Mheshimiwa, where we left, Parliament did its part. You voted overwhelmingly the Pro-Political Parties Act, but then now it's heading to the Senate. What should you expect in the Senate today?
If it is first reading,
yes,
it will actually just be read and say a bill for such and such purposes.
Yeah.
And for the first reading, that is it. Then they'll go for the second reading, which I think they'll put pretty soon. If they did the first reading in the morning, I think they should be able to go for the second reading in the afternoon. They can seek leave to shorten that period. And if that is granted, then they can go for the second reading, and then they can go for the third reading.
Yes.
Now what happens is that during the first reading, as I said, it will just be mentioned, and this is what we have a bill, this is what this will be. It has come from the National Assembly, and now it is before us. Then they will actually discuss in general terms the merits and demerits of the bill, and expound on why those who oppose certain clauses oppose those clauses. Those who oppose the bill in general oppose the bill in general.
Yes.
So basically, you are going into a detailed discussion of the bill, its contents, what it means, what problems it will solve, and what restrictions it will create, and so on. So that's really when you get to know the general purpose and the intent and the implications of its implementation. And if then they pass it, if then the Senate passes it, then it will go for the third reading. Now the third reading is actually not even the third ring, is the committee of the whole house.
Yes.
So they go into the committee of the whole house. Then now you go into detail by detail, line by line, and some clauses may be amended, and those who seek amendments to those clauses will have to bring those amendments earlier.
Right.
So those amendments will be discussed. And there you don't go for a very detailed discussion, because you have had detailed discussion. You say, this is my amendment, the import of my amendment is this. And then the members are asked whether they support that amendment or not.
Yes.
And if they go by the nays and the ayes have it, that if there is if, say, the speaker says it's the nays who have it or the ayes, whichever, the other side, if they feel they are not satisfied, will call for a division. Calling for a division, you actually go for a count, almost a head count. But these days, it is done electronically from your seat. There is the electronic equipment that you will press physically, and it shows on the board. So if that takes place, and that is tedious, and if they call for division at every point, then that takes a bit of time. That's what happened in the National Assembly.
Yes.
And initially in the National Assembly, we were actually to do it physically because the gadgets had been disabled because of COVID to avoid. But later on, they were corrected, and we moved very fast. Now, if then they go through that and it is passed, but that's the way it becomes fairly acrimonious.
It was quite chaotic in Parliament.
Yes.
Perhaps, with all the intentions perhaps to derail the process, as would be alleged, I'm wondering whether that would replicate itself in the Senate.
You can't tell, but emotions will probably run high the same way. Let me repeat this word. I wouldn't be surprised if
you would be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yes.
But again, there's been a lot of public outcry against what we saw, because what was really happening were the efforts by the opponents of the bill to literally just block it, so that we do, first of all, you do what in parliamentary language is called filibustering. You talk on and on and on and on with the sole purpose of buying time and getting time to run over before you actually finish. And then you get to a point where you go beyond that, people start shouting, and when people shouting, the people call each other names, and when people lose their cool, and you see the push and shove, and I would not like it to go that way, because I didn't even like that in Parliament. It happens, but it shouldn't happen. But if that if whatever happens, if it is passed, if they make changes, then it will come back to the National Assembly.
Right.
Now, if the National Assembly agrees with those changes, then it goes to the president for assent. If they don't make any changes, it goes straight to the president for assent. That if they make changes, it comes back. If you agree, it goes to the president for National Assembly. If we don't agree with the changes they have made, then they'll call for mediation, where you get a number of people from Senate, a number of people from the National Assembly, and they discuss the areas of disagreement.
Which we are most likely not to get there. Mediation process.
If we get there, it will then heighten the problem you are worried about, the problem of time limits. Because it will take time. The time of assent from which you start counting the timelines will go further.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
so we hope that it doesn't go to mediation. That would be the best.
When you talk of time, Mheshimiwa, somebody would ask himself that, the whole of this process is done under special sittings. Why the rush? Why was this bill not introduced in Parliament before the recess?
Bills are prepared. A bill can be a member's bill, a private member's bill. A bill can be a bill that is brought into the floor by the majority leader. That means it from the government. And the bill is prepared, and when it is ready, it comes to the House. So you can't ask why was the bill not prepared? Because the need for the bill arises as things are developing. And if you see that there's need, you may find that a bill like this, people have been even thinking about it for even years.
Yes.
So there are bills that people think about for years. It goes for pre-publication scrutiny and so on. So it's a process. To ask why it came at this time, I can only say that is when it was ready to come.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a smart way to bottle it. When it was ready to come.
Yeah.
Perhaps there is just something, or maybe there's some things, the way you're putting it, it was ready to come because a bill takes process for it to be introduced in Parliament for first reading. But then now...
But look at, we have also passed other bills in special sittings. I think we passed the NHF bill also in special sittings. That's why I'm telling you, you must look, when we are doing these discussions, you must look at the motivation of politics as far as the discussions are concerned, how politics is motivating the discussion. You haven't had a lot of outcry on why the NHF bill was done in a special sitting. Yeah, but it was done.
Yeah.
So sometimes when you think a bill needs to be moved fast, then you can have special sittings.
Yeah. Those are just file footage from Parliament. It was chaotic, punches were throwing all over. MP member of Parliament John Mbadi was also suspended for 5 sittings. It was all chaotic in Parliament, but anyway,
Gedi was later also suspended for suspended for a day, and Ndindi Nyoro was also suspended. Yeah.
So it's a crazy one. But then, why would it get to that particular point? Perhaps you might not be the right person to speak on behalf of the Tanga wing, people who are opposed to the bill. But why would they oppose this bill?
You see, I think the first reason, in my view, maybe I may be, as you said, I cannot talk for them. But the first thing, if a bill has been politicized, and as you say, it is seen as a bill coming from this side of the political divide, not many of us politicians will have the courage to now take and read the bill and say, I think this bill has merits or demerits here. So although it has come from a political side, I'm opposing it, or whether it has come from the other side, I'm supporting it. So first of all, when you take it like that, and that's the perception, you can immediately understand that when it has been perceived as an Azimio bill, then they have to oppose it.
It's automatic.
Two, there are certain areas that I can say what they voiced in Parliament, because those ones we had. One of the reasons they brought was that this bill is going to give the registrar of political parties so much powers. They were calling it the imperial registrar of political parties. But on our side, the way I see it, or on my side, the way I saw it, parties there has been a lot of indiscipline in parties, particularly movement of members from one party to the other, or expounding positions that are not in line with their party, and forming coalitions without really guidelines on how it is done. So it's necessary that in order to bring some discipline into the parties, somebody has to be a regulator. And therefore, what this bill is doing is actually making the register of political parties a regulator, to give clear guidelines on how a party is registered, what you need to put in place, what you need to bring, what are your ideologies, what are your programs, what are your slogans, and if you what do you need to bring, the membership, and so on. And the other one was the movement of members. So when a member is deemed, we have this situation where people are in one party and actually campaigning or actually expounding ideology of other parties, while sometimes even holding positions within the house.
Actually, it's even happening right now.
Yes. So that is indiscipline that needs to be brought into place, and you can't leave it to the parties to do that themselves. There has to be a structure that brings that into place. And therefore I think that is necessary, and that is the power that was being given to the registrar of political parties. But there was even, in my view, I saw some positive element. Before all that had happened, it was decided, the current act just said, you are deemed to have resigned from your political party if you expose expound the ideologies of that. If all those,
it's not happening.
But listen, it's not happening because there were no sanctions or no process. Let me say no process.
Right.
But there was also something. It didn't give a member. There was no provision for a member to protect themselves. What has happened in this bill? If you are deemed to have left your party, and who decides you are deemed? One, it is the party. Do we just leave it to the party that has an interest in removing you from it for other reasons? Now the registrar of the political parties has to look at the reasons why you are deeming somebody to have left. And then, they can bring it back to you and say, we do not agree, and therefore will not remove your name from the register of political of your party, because now the register of names of a political party have also to be with the registrar, which I think is a good thing. So that then gives, and you are also given the opportunity to be heard and to use your internal processes. So if these internal processes have not been adhered to, then the registrar has the power to say, no, we can't remove that person's name because you, as a party, have not gone through your own internal processes. You have not given him or her opportunity to be heard. I think that was pretty good. The other one they were quite they brought out, quite concerned about, is the issue that of a coalition party. So they were saying there's no such thing as a coalition party, but we know there should be no such thing as a coalition party. People had coalitions, but there was no legal structure in the political act.
This bill is making
aligning that so that this is what a coalition party is, and the requirement for registering a coalition party cannot be the same as requirement for registering a party. Because a coalition party is a party that's made of coalitions, parties that are already existing. So that process has to be clearly defined. And it's been made simpler in this, that you just have a coalition agreement. And once you deposit the coalition agreement with the registrar, that's okay. They also had a problem with that. What the bill had proposed was actually 6 months. They wanted 3 months. Again, looking at the timeline. But again, that was because we are seeing it in the context of the coming election. We came to a compromise, and eventually it came to four months. So that's the other reason they were very worried about. The other reason that they put forward was that this thing is unconstitutional, particularly the definition of a political party. As it was before, in the current act, the definition of a political party was referred in the Constitution, Article 260 of the Constitution, which said it is as in the Constitution, Article 260. You go to Article 260, and then it refers you to Article 91 and 92. And what 91 says, it gives you the characteristics of a political party. It should be this, the membership, and so on and so on. It does not define the party. Then you go to 92. 92 actually says that Parliament can pass a law to implement this. So you didn't get a clear definition. What this bill did was to now get a definition of a political party as an organization of people, the same ideology, the same program, that seek to change policy or to get people nominated for the. So it's clearer. That was argued, and I think that's where they kept saying this thing will go to court. I'm not a lawyer, but having read it, I don't see anything unconstitutional.
I'll come into that, because when they're talking about going to court, perhaps it creates that perception of a fear. Why they're too much opposed to this bill passing to its into its ultimate conclusion. But then now, when you talk of the way it's going to be structured and having party discipline, are we trying to borrow what happened in the NAC government in 2002, the Rainbow Coalition? Because the Rainbow Coalition was more or less this kind of a structure that is being introduced in Parliament right now.
How do you make laws, and how do laws come about? Laws come about to correct some evils or some mischief you see in the society, or laws come about to put legally what have been found to work, probably administratively, but have no legal basis. I can't say, I haven't studied the details the structure of NAC was, but if the structure of NAC was such that it looks like what we are proposing now, then we must say that they got it right, and therefore there's nothing wrong by now getting that and embellishing it in the law.
Yes.
Yeah. There are many things that are done administratively, they are found to work, but then they are not legal, so you can't enforce them. People do them at their own will. But if you find it's a good thing to do, then you can bring it into the law, so that then it can be guided by the law, and sanctions put in place and processes put in place. I won't fault it just because of that. But as I've said, if people are opposed to something, they always scrutinize and find what to say they don't like. But the same things they say they don't like are the same things you may like. If people want a free-for-all, where you walk from one party and go and talk there, you come to another party
everybody
and talk there, it's chaotic.
Yes.
If I am told I'm going to be removed from a party because I'm deemed to have acted against my party, I need a process. And if I'm left only with my party and the internal structures of my party, and it is the same party that has actually decided I must go, what is wrong with having somebody as an arbiter that doesn't actually force the party, but just says, your own processes. Say 1, 2, 3, 4. Did you subject this member of yours to these processes properly before you ask for his expulsion?
But we've seen so many, politicians around. They still support an ideology of a political party which sponsored them to parliament. Even currently, we have got so many. For example, Aisha Juma, member of parliament of ODM.
She's sitting in the commission thanks to the Public Service Commission.
Yes.
Thanks to ODM. Yeah.
That is the party discipline that you're trying, Parliament, this bill is trying to achieve.
To bring those the issues into law.
Yes. I'm quite interested to know why the Tanga team are opposed to the timeline given. If it's going to bring about party discipline and making sure that when people go to an election, it's a clean process, that even political parties who are members of a coalition are also enjoying all the rights and benefits of a coalition party.
As I said, I don't want to talk for the Tanga group.
Yes.
I can only say what they said. What they said in Parliament. But what I really got from them, they think the time limit was too short. It was too long. Not too short, too long. They wanted it shortened. In my interpretation of what they said would be that they are probably not ready.
Yes.
Right now they are going as ODA, and we don't know whether they're going to go into a coalition. Perhaps, and we can see they are wooing other people. So it means they're preparing to get into a coalition, and they are not ready. So they don't want a long timeline that will block them out.
Yes.
That is what I can see. Yeah. But I think it would not be right to really block a whole law because you yourself are not ready. And you get the impression that probably they don't like the whole concept of coalition. But the way we see this country politically now, I don't see a single party that will come out and go to the elections and win an election as a single party. These coalitions are going to be with us. All over the world, there are coalitions. So it is time we put into law provisions. We put into provisions into law that guide how you make a coalition.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. This aspect. What is your view on pre-election pact or post-election pact?
My view, this is a personal view. I think pre-election pact gives you the idea to put together. Pre-election pact assumes that you have you share ideologies, you share the process that are coming, and you want to go it together. And then if you have a proper agreement that is now deposited with the registrar, then it now you are telling people in advance how you are going to relate and behave from now on. Even before you even would go for the election, and after the election, whether you win or lose, that should be part of the of the pre-election arrangement. You have things like political party funds. How are
Which
they
is a
shared?
big problem, actually.
How are they shared?
Yes.
Again, this bill has brought a lot more details into how it is shared, and actually has given parties a better opportunity of getting part of the political party's fund. You realize that has been a problem before.
Yes.
Now, post election coalitions, in my view, it is after the, and I say it's in my view, it's after the election, and people realize that nobody has got a clear majority. You may have a majority, but when you look at your numbers in parliament, it's such that you will not be able to operate. There may be situations where you want something that needs a large majority, like 2/3 majority, and you know from the onset you will not be able to do it. And you also know that with the acrimony of political party competitions, if you have a parliament which sometimes is described as a hung parliament, you will not move. So you say, okay, none of us can form a stable government, so let some of us sit together and form a government. I think it is a saving grace, so to speak, so that you get things going. And they do work, but they seem to be relatively unstable where we see them, because you see people are already have a coalition. First of all, it takes a long time after the election to constitute a government. And we know cases where it has actually failed, in countries where it has failed, so that nobody can actually form a government. Or a government is formed, is so weak that very soon it falls. So again, my personal view I think it's good to have a pre-election coalition.
Yes. All right, a pre-election, and that is what the Deputy President actually is now fronting, because according to him, you must come on the table, tell us what you have, and if you're going to be a member of the coalition, a member of the party, show us who you are right now before we get to an election. And you said...
But that is what this bill is doing.
That's what the bill is doing. Then why would they oppose it?
Ask them. Although Bonnie, my colleague, is not here, I wish he was, but I think he will have another opportunity to call somebody else.
I will still call him. Bullfighter. What happened?
Or another member who is in parliament, and particularly if you get people who actually expose certain positions, and you can get those clips, and then you can now discuss those positions with them in probably a more congenial environment than we do in parliament.
Mheshimiwa, in ODM, to be specific right now, the process of nomination is always, it's always a crazy one, so to speak. And most politicians, including yourself, the moment you get the certificate, then you are as good as voted into office. But then now, which one do you support? Do you go for the nomination, what the consensus? There's a consensus process, and now there is that the nomination process. You have got two processes, the consensus and handpicking. So which one do you support?
No, you see, there's consensus, there is direct, and
nomination,
and there is even indirect. If this bill passes, then it is also talking about the nomination process. Actually, this bill has also gone into fair amount of details regarding the nomination process. So if this bill passes, then we'll have the consensus, you will have the direct, and you'll have the indirect. And each one has its own merits. Yes. Consensus is probably very difficult to get people to agree, but it can be achieved, particularly in an area where there's not so much acrimony. But that if by this law, direct is not what people think it is.
Yes.
By this, direct would means that you get nominated by party members.
Yes.
That is what is in this bill. Indirect is where you can be nominated by delegates that are picked by the party. So I don't think people have, maybe they have understood the meaning of direct in this bill and the meaning of direct as we have known it before.
Yes.
Now, if you you are also implying the direct that we knew before,
yes,
where the party would say, on this seat we are nominating so and so. But look at it. A party is an organ. It's a structured organ. It's sometimes seeking to get power. Many times seeking to get power.
Exactly.
Now, at every constituency, they would want to win that constituency. So they know they're members of the constituency, and then they can say, here, our best bet would be so and so. Exactly. If there is discipline within the party, I don't see why the party should be denied that. In some countries, actually, people don't vote for candidates; they vote for the party. Then the party assigns candidates. Yeah, so that happens in some countries.
But that is not possible in Kenya.
Well, until we try it, we can't say it's not possible. But the other way, I'm saying, why would we have a direct nomination the way we knew it before this bill comes into place? Now, again, let's say there is a problem, logistical problem. There is probably chaos during it, and there is a limited time for the party now to go and do renomination with the way people would want it before they present their candidate. It would be unfair to expect a party to say, okay, we have now failed in our process to nominate that constituency. We are not shielding a candidate, and therefore we just give it like that to the other party. The party should have the authority and the ability to say, in this situation, because of this logistics, we are picking a candidate. It may be a political process, as I've said, but what about if it is actually a physical logistics process? There are floods or something like that, or there is insecurity in the security, so that process of security cannot take place. You really must provide a party with the legal provision to then get a candidate within their party. And no party will logically put a candidate that is likely to lose, because then they lose. They need strength. So this thing that if you put that candidate is not popular, but time has also proved that if you do that, you lose that seat. And parties are very aware that if you give direct nomination to a candidate that is not popular, you are likely to lose that seat. So I don't see why there should be so much hype about it. And parties can do their own poll. They can do opinion polls on their own. Parties have structures to really know in this constituency who is actually very popular. So when they are faced with that situation where they can't do nomination and they are picking, I think they should use that so that they don't lose, because otherwise they lose. Yes. Okay.
Mheshimiwa, I'm told that you're running out of time, but then now I need to ask you this one. Your colleague, Senator Mithika Linturi, is battling some, police case right now because of the sentiments he made over the weekend. We all agree that it all started like this in 2007, and even years back before then. We are heading to an election period, and it's going to be quite intense as we move forward. And I think this is the right time, as an elder, as a member of parliament, and a person with experience in the area of peace building, what should you tell your colleagues out there and anybody else seeking political seats?
Please, let's stop these hate speeches. My colleague, the senator, is unfortunate. Now they are saying he's apologized. Now they are saying he didn't mean what people think he meant. But it's your duty to communicate what you mean. You don't leave it to other people. So when he said the word madoadoa, Those words were used in 2007.
And actually it appeared in the ICC.
Let me tell you, I moved around this country in 2007, December, 2008, January, and saw what was happening. I went to Naivasha after the events where people were burnt in the house. I actually saw the bodies. I actually released the bodies, the Director of Medical Services. I went to Mao Summit and saw our people on the way to Eldoret.
Yes.
I saw how people were living in tents. The country was so divided. So many people died. I saw bodies that were so mutilated that you couldn't even figure out the sex of the person. Now, why do we want to do that every time we have elections? The people die. So words like Madoadoa, if you said it in that area and look at Eldoret area, Washington Gishu is a settlement area. The colonialists took it for themselves, but after they left, many people moved in.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it is really, I would use the word cosmopolitan. Many people live there. Who is Madoadoa? We don't want the Kiamba issue again. The country was so divided. I moved around the Director of Medical Services. In every part there were 2 IDP camps. In Kikuyu police station, the IDP camps were purely people from Western Kenya, Luyas and Luos. Tigoni was the same. And you went to Limuru, I think it's the children's home.
Yes.
It was people from Western Kenya. You went to Naivasha, near the lake, it was people from Western Kenya only. And even medical staff, they didn't even want to see if they're from another ethnic group.
Exactly, right.
Yes.
Right.
And near the road were the camps from people from Central who had been displaced from the Rift Valley. You went to, that was in Naivasha, you went to Nakuru. In the stadium was people from Western Kenya, many Luyas and a few Kitsis.
Yeah.
In the agriculture, in the showground, it's mainly people from Central who really had nowhere to go. At least people from Western could go and be integrated. The people from Central, I don't want to see that again.
You don't want to see that. You don't want to see that.
People suffered.
Even as journalists,
I went to Kisumu and I saw people living in a church that they had come from various parts living in a church. There was even a story that a woman went there with her husband's head in a carton.
Yes.
That's all they could do. You've heard that story?
Yes.
Now, in Kisumu, there were few people from Central, but they were living at the police station in very conditions you didn't want. Do we want that every time we have an election? I am a politician. We all politicians know what you utter to your followers, even what you imply to your followers may be implemented. You just say, I hate this guy. I don't know what I would do to get rid of this guy. You may mean politically, but your followers may now think now the boss has said. So we have to really guard our tongues in terms of things that can provoke violence. I'm really sorry for him. If he didn't mean it, he has to come out more clearly and say what he meant. But even then, I think the state has the right to show people that we cannot tolerate this.
All right. Yeah, and he'll be appearing before magistrate today in Nakuru to get the direction as far as that court, that case is concerned. Mheshimiwa, we have to end it there. But I'm interested again in asking you, Kisumu exported some product after 13 years direct from Kisumu International Airport to the European countries. That's a plus to the Kisumu County.
Good news.
Yes.
To me also.
Parliament from Kisumu
Good news to me also.
Yes.
When that airport was being opened by President Kibaki,
yes,
former President Kibaki, he made a statement. He actually made it twice, at the airport and at State House in the evening. Now you have opened the airport. What will it do for you? Itakufanyia nini? utaitumia namna gani, itakuletea faida gani, what will you export to give you money. If we come to that, then we have moved a great step forward.
Exactly.
It is an international airport. We have fish, although now the fish is dwindling on the Gulf.
Yeah.
But we should probably move into fish farming in the area and export the fish.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We have possibility of doing flowers there. We haven't done it.
Yeah.
But it can be done. But even some nearby Rift Valley places can actually export from Kisumu instead of exporting from Nairobi. And remember, Kisumu is the geographical center of East Africa. And remember its position before independence. So we should encourage that. Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Sudan. If all these people can actually export from Kisumu, so it would be a great thing if it happens.
We have to leave it at that point. I'm
so
afraid
much.
that we are running out of time, but thank you so much. We've been talking to Dr. James Nikal, and remember we were also expecting Dr. Boni Khalwale, former senator of Kakamega, who has not appeared on the show. Daktari, you owe me an apology as well. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Before I let you go, I'm joined by my colleague Regina Manyara, who is in Kajiado County, to give us a brief of what's happening there on the ground. Regina, is that Regina Nashipai? Thank you. Regina, give us a brief. What is happening on the ground where you are right now?
Endasoba, Victor, that is good morning from Kajiado West. We are at the Olegesaile village. Yes, so when I say Endasoba, you say Soba. So Endasoba, Victor.
Soba.
Indeed. So we are coming live from the Olegesaile village right here in Kajiado. This is just 70 kilometers from Nairobi. And what is happening here tomorrow is that this particular village is going to officially receive the certification for being the best tourism village. And when you talk about the best tourism village, I'm sure you're thinking it's the houses and the cheapest place as such. However, it is about the whole ecosystem, including matters of culture preservation, as well as conservation, matters of climate, and how the community is working around, passing on this culture and tradition to their youth. We know the Maasai community has been very vocal when it comes to cultural preservation. As you can see, I'm donning a shuka. What you need to know is that this is a very much patriarchal community. So this is just wishful thinking. If it was 100 years back, trust me, I would not be holding a spear or dressed as a warrior. But we're in the 21st century and we're still talking about matters of tradition and culture, Victor.
Regina,
I would like to know if you have any other...
is trying to, the country is trying to get ourselves back after the pandemic that actually, took everything down south. I'm yet to understand what is happening down there, because when you talk of... all right, Regina, if you can hear me, the country is coming at a time, this award is going to come at a time where the country suffered a lot because of the pandemic. What does it mean to the tourism industry?
Now, this is part of a campaign or a strategy that is being taken up by the marketing agency Kenya Tourism Board to just diversify Kenya's tourism portfolio to include matters of culture. And some of the lessons that the hospitality industry has learned over the COVID year, what we're terming 2020 and 2021, is that domestic tourism is the niche that can keep this hospitality industry afloat. If you look at what COVID disruptions did, is that it there was less global travel, and over the years we have been relying on foreign tourists. Now we are changing tact, or rather stakeholders within the hospitality industry are changing tact and focusing on more products that would be appealing to the domestic market, and that means you and I, Victor. So this is a way to go when it comes to matters of domestic tourism. And other than just talking about the beach and the safari packages, how about to include matters of culture?
Absolutely. How about when we include matters of culture? And when we talk about culture, Kenya is quite rich, in our diversity. We've, from different backgrounds. And where you are, you have your Maasai lasso there. But, when you talk of tourism again, still on that, what do you think is, what is your projection in the year 2022? The government gives the hoteliers some stimulus packages over sometimes last year. What is your focus? How is it going to pan out in the year 2022?
Now, those are some of the expectations about how the industry performed in the financial year 2020-2021, and these particular results are set to be released this week on Thursday by the Cabinet Secretary, that is Najib Balala, and we are going to be here to just
we are losing Nashipai there. Okay. All right, Regina.
Caterers have come.
We are losing Regina there. Okay. All right. So we are still trying to fix that technical error. And the moment we get Regina back, we'll get back to her for us just to tell us what's happening. She is in Kajiado for a function. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
What good would it do? If she's not even going to hug you anymore, you need to move on with your life, Ding Renjian. Would you wake up?
All done. Done. Does it even matter? I'm nothing like those developers. And I don't want to be. It's not right.
I didn't take advantage of anyone. On the job, I turned it down.
Hold on. Do you realize how much trouble I went through to make this opportunity possible for you?
Mundos divididos por una sombra de traición.
Don't with the man, please let go of the gun!
What do you want? You're not supposed to be inside this house.
I didn't want to leave without saying goodbye to my cousin, but I can't find her anywhere. Would you know where she is?
What's going on?
I don't know.
Oh my God. I hope my grandson Alonso is all right.
Hello. What's going on? You had caught her in some kind of situation that you didn't like?
Yes.
Lying heart.
Fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición entre duda.
Tusirudi nyuma kwa mipaka na nchi kufungwa. Tusirudi kwa biashara na shule kufungwa. Kwa kutoweza kukutana. Kwa kutengana na tuwapendao. Tusirudi nyuma.
Na kuhitaji unikinge, pata chanjo.
Ili tuendelee na maisha vizuri.
Na kuhitaji unikinge. Pata chanjo.
Na kuhitaji unikinge.
Pata chanjo.
Na kuhitaji unikinge.
Pata chanjo.
Na kuhitaji unikinge. Pata chanjo.
Ili tuendeleze maisha bora kwa ajili ya wapendao, nchi yetu na usoni wetu, kwa ajili yetu sisi sote. Pata chanjo. Kaa chonjo. Kuhakikisha nchi yetu na uchumi wetu umestawi katika uwazi. Tusirudi nyuma.
Imerudi. And us over once again, Victor. Sorry for that technical hitch. As you can see, we are 70 kilometers away from Nairobi, and we are actually in the heartland of Kajiado West. We are at the Olegesaile village that received certification as the best tourism village. I want to introduce the founder of this particular village, Mr. Charles Lashore, to just let us understand more what it means to be the best tourism village around, or rather in the country. Karibu sir. Karibu, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Regina, and thank you.
Asante sana. So tell us more about the Olegesaile village and what it means for domestic tourism as well as matters of culture.
Indeed, it is about matters of culture. And Olegesaile village was one of the villages that was awarded the best tourism village initiative by the United Nations World Tourism Organization. It was among one of the villages among the 175 applicants in 75 countries. The village was awarded. Of course, the village is in the middle of Maasai land in the South Rift region of Kenya. A region that has a lot of secrets and values in terms of archaeology, paleontology, culture, heritage, and also the beautiful landscapes. And what this means to the village, as much as it has demonstrated cultural and national diversity, then it means post-COVID, then we have to diversify these products for tourism. And it means culture and heritage nexus, which means building up on tourism for this particular village.
Over the years, we have seen many youth moving away from culture and tradition. With this certification coming to this particular village, as a founder, what are you doing to ensure that the youth of this area get to learn more about their traditions and culture?
That's actually a big challenge with climate change, and depopulation is a big issue where the youth have all to move to cities to look for jobs, and mostly because of the illiteracy, they look for security and watchman related jobs. What the village will do is to diversify products, to identify, to map, identify products that will be diversified to build up on tourism, which is actually ecotourism, adventure tourism, and tourism in general. So it is very important that we address the population, and that's one of the elements of the best tourism village initiative by the United Nations World Tourism Organization.
You have said that this is a home to not only culture but secrets. Maybe you can let out one of the few secrets that is found especially and only here.
One of the secrets, which is actually globally, is the prehistoric site, which is just here next to us. And this prehistoric site dates 1.2 million years to 490 years. Now, these are the secrets because the early man had tools and also that they were using. So this is where we have the highest accumulation of hand access and artifacts of the early human being, and the prehistoric museum was gazetted back in 1970, and we want to say condolences to the Leakey family, the Lewis and Leakey family, for putting up this particular facility that today remains a gem in the world with all the secrets.
Talking about secrets, we understand that within this particular ecosystem is where we find the Lake Magadi Basin ecosystem. So if I was to travel to come to the Lake Magadi Basin ecosystem, what would I be?
Let you know one or three. Number one is at the checkpoint, just in the as you get to the town, then you come across the international migratory routes for birds. It is a flyway, and a flyway means this is where the birds fly to seek either food or also for breeding purposes. That's one. In the same lake, we have Graham fish, which comes from the cichlid family of fish. This is the only fish in the whole world that can live in the We also have the World War Germans and the Portuguese, started invading Africa. So we have that. But again, more importantly, we also have monuments or values, like the old church that serves about 6 denominations. Every church has 1 hour. This is the old Magadi church, plus also the old Magadi Tata plant where they mine soda ash.
Mm-hmm. Very well said.
All right. So let's quickly look at how the roads are looking like this morning at exactly 8:30 a.m. This is still Mombasa City, which is our focus. Now, just before we get to the traffic flow, let me show you what exactly we're looking at very briefly. This is actually the area in Mombasa City. This is the roundabout which was just being constructed there. What had been happening in this particular area was to see how best they could decongest this part of Mombasa City, simply because it's one of those key cities here in the country because of the purpose of being a tourist hub, and this was part of the president's Big 4 agenda simply because of that. So this is what we're looking at this morning, looking at just how the road is looking like. Clearly also part of what was inclusive of this construction process were the sleepers that are also being put in place, again, to ease congestion and decongest the better part of this area. So what we are tracking is the traffic flow around this area, try to see if at all it served its purpose when the construction process was complete. So this is the exact same area, looking at that particular roundabout, the Makupa roundabout, leaving areas of the Mombasa town, branching to sections of Tomboya Road, some of those sleepers that were also constructed there. Just again, in terms of recapping there in part of what had been happening on this particular road in terms of construction, one of them being the Lumumba Road there. There's also Mombasa Road, which is one of those major roads that gets to branch off from the roundabout where there's really heavy kind of traffic. But right now, not really that bad, much as traffic has begun to slightly build up, which is a clear indicator being shown by that orange color, which clearly just shows that traffic beginning to slightly build up, but at least altogether manageable kind of traffic. And actually, this is just how it was earlier on when we were checking the traffic flow on this route. But what has changed is the magnitude of the traffic there, because right now it's just a manageable kind of traffic on both lanes of this section. So as you leave the estates coming through the Mombasa Road there, branching off to that particular roundabout, as well as branching off to areas of Lumumba Road there, and also leaving the roundabout, branching to areas of Tomboya Road, as well as Mombasa Road on the other section, leaving areas of Makupa Police Station, again, at least on that section, not bad at all, moving at a very, very swift pace. So around the roundabout where there's just traffic is where is that particular major road that we have begun looking at. That is Mombasa Road as you leave the Makupa roundabout. So again, just going by what we are seeing, clearly this is serving its purpose very well, because like I mentioned, part of why it was reconstructed was to decongest the area, a project which was being done by the China City Construction Company, being supervised by the Kenya National Highways Authority, that is Kenya, our very own, funded by the African Development Bank. So again, a project that was being put forth to decongest areas of Mombasa, part of what was the President Big Four agenda. So clearly what we've been seeing in terms of road reconstruction, just away from what has been happening in Nairobi, this has also been taking place in different parts in the country, not just most of these major counties or major cities, if you may, areas of Nairobi, Mombasa, or even Kisumu, but that stretches further to different areas, especially when it comes to just try to see how best traffic could be reduced, given the fact that we know how much we get to lose as a country. And also why this one was being particularly constructed is again to at least lift up the economy, because as I mentioned, it is a tourist hub. So again, decongestion is very necessary and important. Back the traffic flow, still nothing is changing, moving at a very swift pace in major parts along this particular roundabout. But right now, this has just changed. In fact, this very second, again, this is why I keep saying all the time that traffic just changes every single second. Look at this. This is as you leave areas of Lumumba Road, as well as Tomboya Road and the section of Mombasa Road before you get to the roundabout. As you head over to the estates there, this has just changed now, moving at a very swift pace, no traffic at all as you leave the roundabout heading over to the estates. So the lane whereby there's just a bit of traffic is on the other section, or better still on the other lane as you leave the estates. They are coming to the city or coming to that particular roundabout, which is again very much expected, just more of what you'll always be seeing even here in Nairobi. Basically what we are seeing there, basically in lanes as you head over to the city center, this is basically what you will be seeing. Traffic could be either heavy kind of traffic or just beginning to slightly build up, but at least on this particular one, manageable kind of traffic. And again, this is where I keep saying, looks like the project, the construction process that was being undertaken in this area is really serving its purpose very, very well. So obviously, again, would just perhaps remain a key area of focus for a while, try to see how that entire construction process is impacting or affecting the traffic flow altogether. But that's how it is looking like this morning in terms of traffic, trying to see how the area is looking like. That is the area in Mombasa County, areas around Makupa. But again, also remember, the same construction process had also been happening in areas around Nyali as well as Mariakani. So again, this remains one of those areas that we'll also just be trying to look at, try to see how this entire process is perhaps impacting or affecting traffic altogether. That is how it is looking like this morning around Makupa roundabout in Mombasa County.
What good would it do? If she's not even going to hug you anymore, You need to move on with your life, Ding Renjian. Would you wake up?
All done. Done. Does it even matter? I'm nothing like those developers. And I don't want to be. It's not right.
I didn't take advantage of anyone. On the job, I turned it down.
Hold on. Do you realize how much trouble I went through to make this opportunity possible for you?
Turns away, the sun sends the day, creeping into the gloom. I promise to love you like you. This is love, my dear. Welcome to my world, and let us share, baby. I got you, baby. I got you.
Sasa yani hata iweje yani na yule aliyoko pale saizi haezi toboa.
Mimi nilikuwa ninakufuata bwana ili tuende kule mjini tukutane na governor tumfunge mdomo tuje tuendelee na kazi.
So what happened?
Paka tumpe time, hebu tumpe mwezi mmoja tuangalie wafanya kazi kweli ama wafanya.
Mwezi mmoja tena?
Mwezi mmoja.
We shall deal with them ruthlessly. Na wewe mwenyewe utaona.
Utasema mke wangu mimi? Wewe umemwoa kwa mahari, umefunga nikaha, unampatia chakula, mavazi na nyumba, kila kitu, mke wako. Alafu mtu from nowhere au ni rafiki akwambia tumchangie, unaweza ukaleta mpaka uadui kwa sababu hicho kilma.
Hakika swala zangu na vichinjo vyangu na vile vile maisha yangu na kifo changu vyote ni vya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, na mie ni mmoja wa Waislamu.
I'm still gonna try. I'm up in the clouds with no wings. I'm a fly, oh fly away, fly away, fly away.
You're not leaving me, Pete, not now.
Christine, unajisikia kweli?
Have respect for the dead.
Did he have even respect for his own wife?
I underestimated you, but now I understand better.
Good for you.
Wewe ni mlevi, and mimi, I'll bounce back.
It was not in my place to tell you anything.
You've not yet been married to our family,
and I could be securing my future.
I'll teach the two of you a lesson.
For the better part of her childhood, Marie, not her real name, moved out from her mother's house to live with her grandmother. Later, as a teenager, her mother got married. Marie moved in with her to the new matrimonial home. According to Marie, what she thought would be the beginning of a new happy life turned out to be the onset of a never-ending nightmare. Marie was only 13 when her stepfather allegedly defiled her.
sex lazima nani kitu alikontinue kufanya Mungu kama yuko anafanya.
She says he took advantage of her and made it a habit every time an opportunity presented itself after her mother left her alone with him.
Nikimwambia sasa mbona unifanyia hivi, ananiambia if you ever talk about this hatutakuwa naweza kumaliza then niseme sijui mali ulienda. So I keep quiet until
Marie says when she finally gathered courage and reported to her mother, no action was forthcoming, thus perpetuating the silence that fueled more abuse.
Popiga simu nikamwambia hivyo, akaniambia unataka kunikosanisha na mume wangu. So kwanza hapo tukwaikuwa na good times na my mom.
Kenya's women rights campaigners say that stigma and fear associated with reporting gender-based violence contribute significantly to the high number of gender-based violence, with a lot of cases going unreported.
Majority of the cases don't get reported, and if they do get reported, ni kama mtu ashakuwa mkubwa mpaka you can't even do a follow-up on the evidence to take this person forward because of that issue.
According to the SGBV toll-free hotline 1195, the total number of gender-based violence cases reported from January to November 2021 were 3,611. Psychological abuse stood at 1,559. Physical assault cases recorded were 805. Child neglect 772, defilement 143, while rape, denial of opportunity, child abduction, child abandonment, denial of resources, sexual assault, custody and maintenance, sodomy, child marriage, female genital mutilation, child labor, and sexual harassment recorded below 100.
All these major cases come from Nairobi County. It is not because other counties don't have such cases. It is just because in Nairobi, people are exposed to GBV information.
The consistent string of cases reported, it is evident that sexual and gender-based violence is resoundingly prevalent in Kenyan homes and communities, a crisis that has drawn the attention of President Uhuru Kenyatta, who has called for urgent measures.
Ukijua uko na mzee ambaye ako na hizo tabia, mweke kwa soko, mwanike hapo mbele ya watu, angalie huyu, hebu muone huyu, anatembea na watoto wa shule, hiyo ndiyo njia ya kusababisha mtu apate aibu, awachane na tabia hizo.
As this nightmare continues to take its toll on families, gender-based violence survivors like Marie can only hope more people speak out against what many now call a catastrophe.
Tukiwa sisi sasa jameni ndio tunawaharibu, si hata sisi tunajiharibia because we are destroying our future. Yeah? So really this is not ati serikali saidia, hapana. Hii sio serikali saidia. Hii ni wewe na wewe saidia.
Good to speak out and begin to seek help. Just call 1195. Psychosocial support is very necessary, very important for anyone who has undergone any form of violence.
It's really important that these parents report these cases for the well-being of their kids and for the well-being of watoto wengine, because kama maybe I'll define wake this time, next time ni wako ata define what will you do about it.
It is a busy afternoon at this workshop located off Spine Road in Kayole Estate in Nairobi. Men at work. Everything here is done in silence, save for the sound of the tools as the workers skillfully put these pieces of furniture together. A silent workshop that is now a safe haven for an all-deaf staff. To making queries and requests, from taking orders and instructions. It is all done in sign language. Francis Maina has been working here for more than 1 year, and his life, he says, has taken a different turn.
Before, my life had a lot of challenges. Working with the deaf group, but when I saw there was no benefits, then Corona came and enslaved us, so I decided to move and come here, and then to see how I work here. Then the boss here taught me how to nail and how to paint. Then I started working. When I saw and I continued well, I saw the benefits, so my life changed.
Sentiments echoed by Geoffrey Odhiambo, who despite being deaf, has unmatched skills in painting and carpentry.
I can have my own money, I can save some, and then I can control how I spend. Yes, I can save some. I know how to budget. Yes, I control things about my life.
Francis and Geoffrey are part of the 6 deaf staff employed at this workshop. Their boss, Anthony Maugui, is not deaf, hence the curiosity. What prompted him to settle for an all-deaf staff?
Nimekuwa na vijana wengi sana wenye nilikuwa nimewafunza kazi. Ile hali ya kufunzana na vijana kazi, vijana wakaanza kutoka na kuanza kupiga hii kazi vita. Mimi nikakaa bila kuwa na kazi sana vizuri, ndio vijana wameipiga sasa ndio nikutana na madefu, sasa ndio nikaanza kujiona sasa hii kazi imeanza kuinuka sasa.
Despite the positive business prospects, Anthony admits that his main challenge was how to communicate with his staff, and they had to urgently become innovative.
Wakati wa kwanza ilikuwa ngumu kidogo kuelewana nao, lakini sasa ile hali kuzoeana nao, wenyewe sasa wakaanza kunifunza vitu zenye wanataka vile zinaitwa. Kama rangi, wananionyesha inakorogwa hivi ndio rangi. Ile ya kuchanganya wanaiita hivi. Wanafanya hivi unajua ni hiyo. Wakitaka rangi wanakuambia hivi. Wakitaka kala hii ya grey wanakufanyia hivi. Wakitaka ile ya red wanakufanyia ulimi.
The boss is here. Our boss is hearing. Yes, we have a challenge of communication. Sometimes we want something and I don't know, I'm stuck, or he's stuck. It forces him to write them to make our communication easy. So he tries, at least to try to teach him some sign language. He can understand a little bit of sign language. The deaf also here, they help one another in our work.
His decision has presented the much-needed golden opportunity for his employees who would otherwise be languishing in poverty, courtesy of the discriminations persons with disabilities face when seeking opportunities.
Before, I tried working. I applied. I was called for an interview, but the boss said, wait. Yes, maybe next week we'll communicate. I waited. And then times passed. There's a challenge, or what is the problem? Then I decided to leave it. I would send messages, but there's no response. I said maybe they are ignoring me, or maybe they picked a hearing person to come and work. I don't know. So I gave up and I dropped it.
Persons with disabilities experience significantly high rates of unemployment compared to the rest of the population, and when lucky, they get low-paying jobs. Factors for the high unemployment rates range from low educational attainment, lack of employable skills, inaccessible information on employment, lack of access to self-employment opportunities, rapidly changing labor markets, and conducive working environment, as well as perceptions by employers who frequently regard persons with disabilities as unsuitable for employment.
This attitude, it cannot help the deaf. Some think that they oppress, but sometimes when you look at me, I don't look oppressed. It's myself who has the disability. It's about my life. I learn, I go and work anywhere I can work. Example,
But the doctor says, me, I cannot work as a carpenter. I don't want cheap jobs. But they forget that knowledge and education level is different. In Kenya, we have a big problem of accepting everything. So we need to stop this kind of attitude.
Hawa ni watu wazuri sana. Ni mtu mkifanya naye kazi na muelewane. Ni mtu anafikiria vile hata yeye atajijenga. Afikirii vile atakubomoa na yeye ajibomoe. Si kama hao wengine wenye wanazungumzia wako na ile undani ile uchini ya kuharibu. Lakini huyu ni mtu mwenye anataka hata yeye aone amesimama baadaye.
The work here shows that being deaf does not limit your abilities.
Welcome back. We now want to move on to the next conversation. As I promised earlier, every Tuesday we get to focus on matters health. And today we will be talking about therapy. Yes, therapy. What does it mean? What does it entail? What can you expect should you choose to exploit as, you know, a way or part of your lifestyle? So today is Class 101 focusing on therapy, and we welcome you to send in your questions, your comments, clarifications, as simple or as grand as they may be. We absolutely welcome them. Use the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. That is our official hashtag. The official station handle is at KBC Channel 1. My handle is at Jane Wamboi. And with us today to just also help us pick up from the conversation we had yesterday, we have Nchebere Morioki, who is a counseling psychologist at Purpose Counseling and Wellness Center. Good morning once again.
Good morning to you.
Thank you for making time to be with us today.
You're welcome.
All right, so therapy. Let me just hear from your interaction with people in the different spaces that you've interacted with.
Yes.
Whenever therapy is mentioned, before you even get to understand what it means, what is the general reaction you get from people?
Thank you. The first reaction that I receive from people is, I'm fine, I'm okay.
Defensive?
Yes, because therapy in our Kenyan context has been taken as something for the people who have lost it. Kwa lugha ya mtaa ni ya watu wamechizi. People who have no hope and no one wants to be associated with therapy. And therefore, they do not want to be known that they are going for therapy, and it is the last resort when everything has failed, or when one has been referred by their doctors. That is when people come to therapy.
Now, let's get the actual definition of what therapy is.
Thank you. Therapy is a journey, a process that involves one person or a group of people, whereby an individual or a group seeks the services of a trained practitioner in the field of psychology, in the field of counseling, or in the field of clinical psychology.
All right.
Yes.
Now, speaking of the professional who's involved in this, we always get to hear various titles given to those that are in the professional side. We hear counseling psychologists, we hear therapists, wenye unanipigia simu nikiwa hewani. We hear of counseling psychologists, we have therapists, we have shrinks. What is the difference? Is there a difference between a therapist and a counseling psychologist, or they're just one and the same, used interchangeably?
Okay. The major difference is between a counseling psychologist and a clinical. A clinical one is one who has been trained in the area of psychology, but them, they can administer medicine. They can prescribe.
Clinical psychologists.
Yes, clinical psychologists.
Okay.
They can prescribe.
All right.
A counseling psychologist like me, I will only offer therapy. I will not prescribe. When I interact with a client and I discover after doing the assessment that this client needs more attention, they need medication, they need to be treated, they need antidepressant, as we call them, then I will refer now to a clinical psychologist. Now, clinical psychologists work mostly within hospital establishments.
Okay.
And they work hand in hand with psychiatrists. Yes.
All right, so therein lies the major difference.
Yes, that's the major difference.
Okay.
But them, they have studied psychology and majored more on medicine, understanding medicine so that they can be able to offer that.
Okay.
Unlike now, us, as counseling psychologists, we study psychology. We learn how to offer cure without medicine. Originally, even today, some call it talk therapy. Now, we access your mind by knowing as you speak. As I listen, I will hear what you have not told me.
Okay.
I will hear what the client is not saying, and I will follow and offer help from that aspect. So we offer help without giving medicine.
All right.
Yes.
And I think that sets the line very clearly.
Yes.
But now let's come to some of those myths and misconceptions around therapy, and especially so in the Kenyan space, before we get to dive deeper. And I'm going to be reading for you some of what I came across, and I'd like for you to just, if it's a myth or if it's true or if it's misunderstood, you just clear the air for us.
Okay.
But one that I think is a myth is where people say that therapy is for those that are mentally ill or weak.
That's a myth. Again, first of all, I want to put a difference between mentally ill and mental wellness.
Please do.
Mentally ill individual is a person who has a mental disease. For example, the common word that goes in our market is bipolar.
Bipolar disorder.
Yes. Now, a disorder is the disease of the mind, like I kept mentioning yesterday. Now, this one does not require therapy alone. This client, this patient cannot be assisted by only therapy.
Okay.
At some point, a bipolar patient can be held by a counselor and a clinical psychologist, both of them running hand in hand. Yes.
Okay.
Now, mental illnesses are totally different from mental wellness. You might be a person maybe going through challenges, maybe going through stressful moments, and they have got pressure and they are overwhelmed by things. Maybe they are losing memory by forgetting where you kept your keys or something. Now, that person, before it gets to the worst part, that person can seek counseling services.
Okay.
Now, this person can be assisted by counselors, as we call them, by therapists or by by counseling psychologists. Now, at this point, this person is not sick mentally. They are only having challenges, and they come so that they can be assisted to get back to normal.
And at that point is where you, as the counseling psychologist, can be able to determine what level of assistance they need after you do your assessment.
Yes,
All right.
absolutely. Actually, most of the time, I consider myself as the stopgap. Before it gets beyond control. And now you are on medication, you are hospitalized, you are a Madara case, and so on and so forth. Yes, so that is a myth.
All right.
Yes.
Now, another one that is also one that maybe makes people not or want to get into therapy is for some think therapy never ends. Is that true?
That's not true. Therapy ends. There are cases you can meet a client and in 2 sessions, they've gotten back, they are fine, and they are able to be themselves. And that's the end of therapy. Only after 2 sessions. There are other cases, depending with the issues that the person has carried. I hope you remember yesterday me mentioning about developmental trauma.
Yes.
Now, if the individual has not suffered damage or trauma, 5 sessions again, we are done. Yes, a person can come back later, after 3 months, after 4 months. It doesn't mean it didn't end. Therapy has an end. It's a journey. It can take long. For some people, it's 10 sessions. For other people, it's 3 sessions. For other people, it's 5 sessions. So yes, therapy has an end. What they might be confusing is when, for example, you are diagnosed with a mental disorder. Let's take the simplest that looks simple, depression, as we spoke yesterday.
And in this case, we're talking about somebody who's on antidepressants.
Yes, that one is now a mental illness. Now, this individual has started a journey that might take a while, if not long, whereby they are booked in for review clinics after maybe every 2 weeks. After they continue getting better, it is reduced to 3 weeks, eventually a month, eventually every 2 months. And if they slide back, the process starts again. So that one can take a whole year. Before your clinician, before your doctor, before your therapist decides, okay, we are at a better position now. It's okay. We can now maybe come every quarterly, we can come every 6 months. But for the mental illnesses, yes, it's a longer journey. It's some real work.
Sawa. Now, another area that the common mwananchi might be generally, and a huge chunk of us might be in this category, thinking that friends and family are good therapists.
It's a yes and a no.
Yes, why? No, why?
Yes. No, because there is a thing we call confidentiality. There is a thing we call biasness. When I am counseled by my uncle, by my brother, my elder brother, by my auntie, they come from a point of knowing me. They also come from a point of knowing, Nchebera, you behave like your father. This a bit is like your namesake. They are not offering any help. If anything, exactly. If anything, they are re-traumatizing me. So that becomes one danger for me, for an individual to seek services of therapy or counseling from a known person, from their teacher, for example, or from family.
Basically someone who you have history
with. We all the time discourage this because of the obvious biases that may prevail in a session.
All right.
Number 2, for no to a known person, is you're in session and you may say something, and your other person, the one who is counseling you, asks a question in line with something you have a dispute with. The person who is being counseled will immediately think, you know what? You are already having a bias because of what happened last month. So even if the intent was right, then the person who is in therapy will feel judged, and that messes up the whole process.
All right.
Yes. Why should people seek therapy from professionals? One, we have been trained to keep confidentiality. I joke to myself and I say I am a walking yard of secrets.
A walking safe.
I have kept enough and numerous secrets for people. Number two, if one boy you come, I have no idea where you come from. So when I interact with you, it is authentic. It is genuine. When I tell you something, you take it seriously. Most cases is that this happens, I may warn you of something your mother, your uncle, your relatives have been telling you. This is dangerous, stop it. Otherwise, it will destroy you. And then you realize, wait a minute, wow. You
There's
mean?
a pattern there.
So it has an impact on you. Other than the confidentiality that we offer, there is also the aspect of you sharing your secrets to someone who doesn't know you. The interaction changes instantly. Because what you are sharing with me, you know is safe and secure in the sense that I have no history about you.
All right.
So it is important for people to seek therapy from professionals.
Now, still on that particular aspect, and another area that is very grey for most people, then this is the cases where a parent is now seeking the services for the child, and let me use myself as an example. I bring my child to you, I need you to help my child, and I start giving you a background about my child, the struggles that we have been having with them. I'm sharing them with you to just sort of give you a guidance, a template on the areas to handle. Parental influence when it comes to therapy.
Yes, that is very wrong. One, you are giving me an opportunity to have a predetermined assessment.
But I'm the parent and bringing this minor to you. Nakwambia tumekuwa tukisumbuana na yeye, hanisikizi, anapenda kukaa huku, hataki kufanya hii.
Yes, it is because parents and most people do not believe that we have been trained enough to pick the problem and pick better problems than you tell us. Number one. Number two, going by your example, you may want me not to discover some things. And so you want me to fix your child in the same wavelength that you have always wanted to. Let me tell you, one boy, that most of the time when I counsel children, I have come to one conclusion. There is no bad child. I hope you heard me well. All children are good. It is the environment that they are born into. It is the socialization that they live in that most of the time they are reacting out of what is happening. And when you see a child behaving in a certain way, the parent is involved. So most of the time I find that as well as I am helping the child, I will as well need to counsel the parent. And most parents don't love that. They ask me, kwani mimi sasa ndio nimekuwa mwenye shida? They do not appreciate that 80% of what children do, they have seen it at home. 20% is only what they hear. So children do what they see. And we don't want to believe that we are the cause of these problems.
Oh, it's a very touchy area for parents. Now, let me come to the last misconception that is there about therapy. And this is that people think therapy is only for serious problems. Is this entirely the situation? Whenever you feel you are dealing with a life event that is really pushing you to the edge, that is when you need to seek therapy. But daily challenges that you've been struggling with for a while, you can man it out, quote unquote.
Again, because there are misconceptions, yes, they are. There is no problem starts big. All problems start small.
That is true.
So, it is important to seek these services early enough before they come out of the hands of a therapist. I will give you a very small example. People who suffer from insomnia, they never just woke up one day and they were having issues with sleep. It started gradually. Now, they wait until things have gone out of control, out of hand. That's when they are coming to seek therapy. Now, that's too dangerous. Sometimes I meet people with that problem, and first of all, I tell them, you know what? Where you are at, we have to work, me and a clinical person. So you first of all to seek their services. They put you on medication, and as you go for your clinic, you also come for your therapy. Now, at that point, the problem is beyond the person. So it could have been easier to come when it was small. What causes one to lack sleep? It is because your mind is overwhelmed. Like we said yesterday, it can't hack. We have a clockwork of sleeping.
It cannot function within its normal programming.
Yes, and therefore, you have been working the whole day, you are tired, but your brain is being pumped with enough cortisol that you are awake throughout the night. You only did 1 hour. Now, that is too detrimental to your whole system, because it is when you sleep when we get rest, when we get repair. Now, at that particular time, if you do it for a week, for a month, the problem of lack of sleep become common, and your problem also that is causing you not to sleep is also increasing. Now, by the time you come to seek for help for that which made you lack sleep, things are too much. It's beyond. So it is important to seek therapy when things are at the initial stages.
Don't just go for therapy when things are, when you consider it to be a big problem. Now, let's talk a bit about those life events that, from where you stand as a counselor, as a therapist, recommend that people seek therapy as a form of treatment or let out, because sometimes we journey through life. For example, you lose a loved one, and maybe they were distant. Maybe they were your great-grandmother or a distant cousin, and you feel, okay, that doesn't really affect me. So you try to move on in life, but you also have some challenges that you don't understand where they're stemming from. What are these life experiences that you would recommend one to seek therapy just to ensure that our mental wellness is actually operating at its optimum?
Thank you. I will call them fatherhoods. Now that word is WOUNDS, and motherhoods. This is the first place where we get damaged, we get hurt, we get broken. And from a very young age, we carry issues. I call them trauma, developmental trauma. Now, these things, we grow with them. We get accustomed to staying with them, yet they are breaking us. By the time someone is an adult, they have a major problem. Take, for example, a very small thing, rejection. It looks like a very minor issue.
You'll get over it.
Exactly, you get over it. I will tell you here today, there's nothing you get over if you don't work on it.
True.
We have a space in our brain where we bury painful incidences. They only need a trigger, and bam, something very small. Have you ever gone into for a burial ceremony, and it's my father who has died, and Wamboi, as my friend, you come to breathe with me. And as we lower the body of my father, I am not crying as much, but you are seriously crying. You are not related to me. You are just a friend. You are not crying because of my father. You are crying and grieving your losses.
Because that is a triggered one way or the other.
Exactly.
Okay.
That trigger, that my father's death brought memories of your pain. Now, the most funny thing here is you may not be aware.
You're wondering, why am I crying so much?
And after that, you've had people who are saying, "Akimi machozi yangu inakuaga hapa." It is because sometimes unconsciously we may not ever come to know. And that's where we come in. We pick, like I said earlier, I am trained to hear, to know, to look at the body language and tell and ask and probe those things that might be putting you down. It is the eye, it is the ear of a professional therapist or psychologist who will come up and say, I pick that whenever this and this happens, this is the reaction. And you confirm by giving a deeper story. And then we know, so we start from here. This problem is not what I am seeing. It has got a serious underlying issue. And therefore, I don't deal with the problem. Yes, I go to the issue that brought you here. And that becomes the journey of healing. So, yes, people out there are walking with problems. Lastly, you've seen people walk talking to themselves. It is because they are not very far away from losing it. It's a state where you've forgotten that you are alone. Unconsciously, you are seeing, I'm talking to Wamboi. And I literally talk to you, and I'm walking on the street. The pressure that I am going through, it is too much. I have forgotten, I have lost touch with my reality outside there that I am supposed to think, but not to verbalize as I walk. That's a person who is a candidate, who is a client for therapy. But because of how we think about it, no one comfortably walks into therapy.
Now, how does therapy works? When it comes to you as a client for the first time, what can I expect, or what can our viewer expect when they decide to venture into therapy as a form of treatment?
Thank you. There are therapists who will say, first, they have to interact with you, hear your story, and walk with you 2-3 sessions so that they can be able to pick the issue.
Okay.
For me, I have come to realize day one is the day to start dealing with the problem. So remember, as we deal with people through talk, it is from your talking that I get the opportunity to get to what is the underlying problem.
Okay.
Now, when I pick what is the problem, I bring it to the surface. Most of the time, what brings people to therapy is not the issue. It is, they come saying, I am ABCD. Actually, I remember somebody came to therapy and told me, I am here because I want us to talk about my career. I am not progressing and I would need your service so that I can tell, why am I not promoted? What is happening? I am having issues at my place of work. And I listened. And as they were talking, I picked she has losses that she has gone through that she has not finished mourning. And probing a little bit, tears flow. And tears in the therapy room are endless. And I come to realize the loss of the father, the loss of the brother, the loss of the relationships has been piled. So as I started addressing the losses, she stopped crying, looked at me straight and asked me, I did not come here to address my losses. What is the relationship between my losses and my career? At that time, it is the skill of disarming that we are trained that comes in handy. And first of all, to disarm her, calm her, and explain to her, show her the relationship, how the losses are manifesting in her job. And we walked through that journey. And I'm happy to tell you that she went a healed person. So yes, therapy is curative, but it is not intrusive. We don't offer anything. But yes, we will touch your mind. We will deal with your issues. We will deal with your low self-esteem, with your emotions, with your thought processes, with your irrationalities, and we bring you back to normalcy.
Helping bring you back to your sense of normalcy. We are talking about therapy, and we welcome you to share with us your thoughts. I will be sampling some of your messages. I can hear my phone buzzing over here. So send them, simple, grand, complicated as they may be. We absolutely welcome you to be part of this conversation. We take a very quick breather. We'll be back to continue this discussion. Don't go too far.
Kwa hiyo Kate na babako ni wazimu, walitafutana wakapatana.
Alikwambia yalala nani? Ataweza kwa hiyo tuchungulie hapa.
Hii ni changamoto mojawapo ambayo mtu hupitia katika ulezi.
Na mimi sitaki kuona hapa. Sitaki uje hapa tena.
Unaficha nini wewe? Na kuona umeficha nini?
De traición.
Don't with the man, please let go of the gun!
What do you want? You're not supposed to be inside this house. I didn't want to leave without saying goodbye to my cousin, but I can't find her anywhere. Would you know where she is? What's going on?
I don't know.
Oh my God. I hope my grandson Alonso is all right.
Hello. What's going on? You had caught her in some kind of situation that you didn't like?
Yes.
Lying heart. Tusirudi nyuma kwa mipaka na nchi kufungwa. Tusirudi kwa biashara na shule kufungwa. Kwa kutoweza kukutana. Kwa kutengana na tuwapendao. Tusirudi nyuma.
Na kuhitaji unikinge, pata chanjo.
Ili tuendelee na maisha vizuri.
Na kuhitaji unikinge, pata chanjo.
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 ili tuendeleze maisha bora kwa ajili ya wapendao, nchi yetu na usoni wetu, kwa ajili yetu sisi sote. Pata chanjo, kaa chonjo, kuhakikisha nchi yetu na uchumi wetu umestawi katika uwazi. Tusirudi nyuma.
Thank you for staying this far with us. We continue with the conversation right here on Good Morning Kenya, all about therapy today, getting to empower you with the knowledge that you need before you get into this journey of seeking therapy. And with us in studio this morning, we have Nchebere Muriuki, who is a counseling psychologist at Purpose Counseling and Wellness Center. The hashtag is still Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. At KBC Channel 1 is the official station handle. My handle is at Jane Wumboy. Now, coming back to you, Doc, let's now talk about the things that we need to look out for as individuals whenever we are venturing out to seek therapy, just to be able to be also our first line of defense. Now, when it comes to seeking a good therapist, because we are alive to the fact that there's so many quacks in every industry, and I believe you have also interacted with the same stories in your space. What makes for a good therapist, as from what you have learned and from what you also train?
Thank you. One, the ability to be able to assess and pick out what the client is going through. Now, that becomes a challenging aspect, because in that space, one has to visit. And that being the scenario, then it is quite challenging in the space of dealing with those who are not well trained, as you call them, quacks. But having said that, it is the work of a counselor, a therapist, when they receive their client, be able to assess and know this person is suffering from this. This is the problem that is making the person react, behave, act, and think the way they are. Now, the journey of therapy starts undoing some of the things, be it behavioral, be it thinking cognitively, that this person has gone through.
Okay.
Now, that process can be fast and sometimes can be slow. So, in a nutshell, it is not 100% possible to detect from the look a good therapist and a bad therapist.
Now, that now boils down to maybe personal preferences, because there's those who might prefer a younger therapist to an older therapist, or a lady therapist to a female therapist, rather, to a male therapist. Are these things that you would advise an individual to pay attention to when they are seeking therapy?
I will say again, yes and no. No, because the issues a person is going through can be assisted either by a lady or a man. So it is not predestined completely that a man is better in this, a woman is better in this.
Even in cases where people are dealing with trauma that maybe...
I was coming to that.
Okay.
However, the experiences an individual has gone through, they will come and say, I want a male, I want a female. That one is respected. Why? Because the moment they are given what they have not asked for, that becomes a ground for re-traumatization. However, the person can be assisted to realize theirs is an irrationality. Yes, a certain man hurt them, but that doesn't mean all men are the same. Yes, a certain woman did ABCD, it doesn't mean all women are the same. So through the journey, then they can be assisted to overcome whatever experience that they have gone through, so that now they can look at male or female with a better eye. They can have a better perception, and therefore they can be assisted by anyone.
All right. Yeah. Now brings me to the next aspect that most people also have their reservations about, and this is now the area of privacy and secrecy. As you said, you are literally a walking safe, a walking port with all these different things that people get to tell you. What are the guidelines that as a therapist you operate within to ensure that you are not breaching anyone's sense of privacy, even in cases where a parent has brought a child to you, but they request or demand rather that you tell them what they told you or what you discussed with the child? Privacy concerns.
Yes, that becomes a very tricky area, and that's a good question. Ethical concerns come in here. I'll start first of all. One of the things that we are trained to do is to make sure that I do good to my client at all times. That is one. Two, I do not cause harm to my client at any given time. Three, I must be able to offer justice, to offer that ability for them to feel that they have been listened to, they have been heard, and they have been assisted.
Okay.
Now, having done that, true, I'll pick your case whereby a child has been brought. Remember, this is a minor. And the parent has authority over the child. I am in between two hard places. I have to keep the secrecy of my young client.
Yes. And
at the same time, I have to inform the mother, the father, who has authority over this minor. Now, that is where the act of balance is required. First and foremost, if a teenager, if a young person's walking to therapy and they think you are an extension of their father or their mother, therapy has been messed up instantly. You will not go far. They will not disclose. So that's where again training comes in, to disarm them nicely and slowly, with assurance that whatever we share here is private. Now, back to your question. I make sure that information that I get from the young people or from the child is not harmful to the child. If it is, that I will let the child know. Can we seek help from our parent so that we deal with this problem?
Okay.
There are things that we cannot keep. Things that are planning to do harm to public.
You're legally obliged to disclose such information.
That one I will disclose.
Okay.
I will not keep that as confidential. And in our interaction, as we contract, I will let you know that this confidentiality that I am swearing myself to is not absolute. So it can be broken. And I will technically let you know on 3 or 4 instances I will not keep this confidentiality.
All right.
Yes. So when I make sure that is done, then we embark on the journey. Back to the minor. There are things I pick from the minor and I discover the parent is the aggravator, is the trigger to the problem. When the parent comes in, I use again my profession, my skill, to let the parent know what they are doing is the cause of the problem.
How does that usually go like? Because I mean, parents are bound to be defensive.
It is now the training, the professionalism walks in,
yes,
whereby my business is not to have antagonism. That is not my business whatsoever. My business is to let the parents realize their action, whether intended or not, is the cause of this problem. Or, and I thought has just come a case I dealt with towards the end of last year. This is a child who has grown with only one parent, and they have reached a point they are seeking for their identity, and they want to know who their father is. And they have asked and it can't be said, so they decide, you know what, I will be truant, ndio uelewe. So when they come and I realize that is the problem, in a nice way, in a disarming way, in a calm manner, I let you or the parent realize this is not a problem. What would happen if this child knows their father? And you slowly let them know this child has no beef, has no problem with their father. The problem is between the mother and the father. Kindly, would you too, for the sake of this child, agree to help this child to grow a better individual as you think of ways of solving your differences? It is not a simple journey, but we make it.
We make it. Now, let's just stick on that still area of confidentiality, because as per what I know, recording devices are not allowed, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, in the therapy room, you know, the counseling room. And we've heard of cases where it's always hearsay. This person did this to me, or my counselor did this to me, or my patient did this to me. In such cases where you find the client claiming the therapist or the counselor may have violated them in one way or the other, and there isn't any other way to dispute this information to protect the professionalism of this particular counselor, how is that situation going to play out? How do we ensure that it's not just a question of hearsay and whom to believe in such a situation?
Thank you. They are very common, those cases. I will start by first of all saying, when a client comes in, it is my duty as the client speaks and expresses themselves, I must be alert. Number one. Number two, I must be able to understand all the non-verbals, all the body language that the client is bringing. And as we move on in session, make sure that the client knows I am aware. By one, inquiring, I noticed something. I noticed a certain reaction. Maybe would you like to share what that means? Sometimes it becomes a deter to the client not to do things. It becomes very difficult in a scenario where the client is saying that my therapist, my counselor did ABCD. What we are trained is that the client comes when they are vulnerable. So, as it is, there is no much ground that can save me as a therapist. It is my duty to be able to protect the client at all times. When I discover something is happening that is not pleasing, I bring it out again in an authentic, genuine manner to the client. And if the client doesn't seem to understand, I seek to terminate the sessions.
Because we've seen situations where maybe the client develops, for example, emotions, romantic emotions on the therapist because they feel this person understands me. How are such situation handled? Is it one of these cases that you have to terminate the sessions or refer? How do those go about?
Remember, the problem in therapy is that this is, for example, if it's one-on-one, whereby it's a client and the therapist in a secluded room having a discussion, and I will go back to the aspect of cameras and so on. So
where we stand in that.
Yes, when we are at that, again, I leave a lot of responsibility to the therapist, to the counselor. Why? Because I am trained. There are things that should be red flags for me. So when I notice them, I flag them out. And in our contract also, I make sure that the client is aware this is unacceptable. It is not supposed to be done. Now, that is the only way I can safeguard myself. If I notice it is going on, then it is me now to say I am not able to proceed with this session. Would I refer you to someone else? I want us to terminate our sessions. Fortunate enough, in the years I've been serving, I have not been faced by this because I am too clear when it comes to the contract. These are the requirements. And I also make sure I understand the expectations of my client long before we embark on the journey of therapy. So I know 1, 2, 3. And after every session, I make it my business to inquire, did I meet this expectation? So when we meet next, we start by knowing what are our expectations, so that at the end of it, we can look at how has it been, have I been able to achieve that? And that is the moment I get feedback from my client.
All right.
That being said, that the aspect of cameras and what have you,
recording devices,
I hope the body of counselors will be formed that will have such requirements, whereby the counselors in their profession can be protected, because we do not know the intentions and the purposes of all these people who come to seek our help. So as it is right now, I have not come across any law that allows us to have that. I would love cameras in my office. I would love recording devices in my office, whereby even after the session, I can listen to what transpired in session, and I may be able to pick things I might have missed during the session, so that I can be able to start where I missed the next session. So I pray that as therapy and counseling grows in our country, that these things will come and they will be a plus for the therapy fraternity, or for the counseling fraternity
as a whole.
Yes.
Now let's talk a bit about the costs that are involved here in our country, and it's also something that a question that has come through from one of our viewers, that is Frederick, asking why is therapy so expensive in Kenya? I know of actually two people who go for therapy. One pays 10,000 a session and the other pays 20K a session because of anxiety. The costs that are involved when seeking therapy services.
Well, I will try to answer that question like the way I think lawyers do. Number one,
very briefly, as we move on, we're almost out of time.
Yes, number one, we do not have a framework that tells us this is the much I should
the price
charge.
range.
Yes, from this issue to that issue to that issue. This is a business of an agreement between a client and their therapist. There's some clients there's some therapists who will charge minimum 3,000, 5,000. and the others will do more than that. I cannot blame them. I cannot say there is a ceiling. So we do not have like that, I hear them, it being called advocate remunerations. We don't have such, and that makes it now free. It's a bargaining aspect. Yes, there are therapists who can charge minimally, and of course there are others who can charge expensively.
Okay.
So it's difficult to answer why is it in some places expensive and some other places.
Okay. Now, Cynthia is asking, what can we do to change the perceptions? I'm trying to paraphrase this particular message. The perception around therapy, and especially to our parents, looking at the generational differences that come into play. Just borrowing from the example that she has sent through, where a child says they'd like to talk to somebody else, but the parent says they're being entitled. Perceptions around
it's tricky. One, I think the government has to come through, whereby the misconceptions around counseling and therapy can be changed. I also think the school programs whereby we have guidance and counseling department can be changed, and professionals can be put there. I am not against the teachers. I am only looking already, when a teacher is running that department, they have got their workload because they were not trained as therapists, they were trained as teachers. So they have got their normal workload. And then there is these issues that students bring up.
Okay.
If that can be increased and brought to the awareness of many people, that can improve. Also, the general awareness, if that can be increased, I think that can improve. For the parents, I agree. They are totally entitled. And I have encountered that numerous times. It is by actually God's grace, my profession, and knowing how to handle them. Maybe that is what has saved me. But yes, parents walk in with entitlement, and it's a serious thing.
Now, a last question from Louis, who's asking, do therapists need therapy as well?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes.
After a certain number of sessions, I need to seek the service of another senior therapist.
Oh, yeah.
Who is ahead of me.
Yeah.
Who can help me. We have a supervision. I always seek the services of my supervisor, so that we can look at two sides of this supervision. My cases, my client work, and what that brought to me. There are cases that I handle that are so emotional. And remember, I'm not supposed to show emotions. So,
but you're also human.
Yes, by the time the client leaves, I am completely beaten. So I call my supervisor, and I go specifically so that we discuss the case. This time, not discussing detail after detail of what transpired, but what affected me in the case. And my supervisor has more experience. He is able to know how that is affecting me, and he connects, and he assists me to know, have you checked this? So they become, he becomes my touch. So yes, we seek the services of others. Those who doesn't do, they are candidates of burnout. And that can be so serious. Briefly, therapists or counselors who doesn't seek therapy themselves. I've just remembered the case where a client told me, I've been seeing clients, counselors, so and so, which I told, please don't say their name. And they told me, I hope you won't sleep in session like they slept. that was quite...
Burnout is real.
Yes, that one was quite something. And I immediately knew how I wish that therapist could seek the service of a senior or someone who is experienced in our profession.
So therapists also seek therapy. I mean, after all you go through dealing with
we have
people.
issues also.
Yes. All right. Now, that is at the point where we want to bring this conversation to a close. Thank you so much for sharing your questions with us. We absolutely appreciate that. We do hope that from this discussion, you are better informed, better positioned to make a decision moving forward when it comes to therapy, an informed decision for that matter. And as Dr. has rightfully said it here, those big problems start as small problems. So you don't have to wait for it to be a big problem in order to seek therapy. Deal with it when it's still in its budding phase to avoid a catastrophe much later in life. We have been speaking with Nchebere Muriuki, who is a counseling psychologist at Purpose Wellness and Counseling, Purpose Counseling and Wellness Center. It is important to mention names rightly. The Purpose Counseling and Wellness Center. Thank you so much for making time to be with us today.
Most welcome.
Thank you once again. And thank you for being with us. We want to put a stop there, but we will be back tomorrow with another fantastic edition of Good Morning Kenya. On behalf of the crew, we wish you a lovely day. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. I am Jane Ramboy.
Log on to the KBC website at www.kbc.co.ke to get the latest breaking news, entertainment, sports, politics, lifestyle or business trends from Kenya and around the world. Never miss new episodes from your favorite TV shows, reruns and movies. Just stream online or watch live on your YouTube channel at KBC Channel 1 TV shows. For the day's biggest stories, trustworthy news and family entertainment, log on to KBC Channel 1. Watch what you want anytime, anywhere.
Kwa hiyo Kate na babako ni wazimu, walitafutana wakapatana.
Alikwambia yeye alala na nani? Ataweza kwa hiyo tuchukue.